everyone. This is Dillon,
And this is Fortune, also known as a Restless Mind on YouTube.
and welcome to Cinescussion, episode 10, our little Halloween special.
Woo! We are in
Woo,
double digits.
finally, finally. If I remember correctly, I know this is my favorite holiday of the year. Is this your favorite holiday of the year?
100%. There's no holiday that even comes close to Halloween. I love horror. I love spooky atmospheres. I love creepy things. So that's probably why I love like Nightmare Before Christmas and stuff. Like that whole world is so cool to me. Like I love all that. So yeah,
Yep. Spooky,
100%.
scary skeletons. Absolutely.
Yes,
100 my
100%.
favorite part. Scary movies and candy. I could just do it all year.
Yeah, I know, right? I always enjoy Halloween, and I'm like, now there's no excuse. It's time to start watching lots of horror movies, even bad ones. This is gonna be great.
Yep, exactly. And sometimes the bad ones are even better.
Yeah,
Um,
ironically, like I end up having more fun watching that. Like
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah.
I know we got a lot to go through today. We saw some movies in theaters. You saw the new Halloween. I saved
Mm.
myself that heartache.
I made sure to do the free subscription for 7 days on Peacock, and I watched it at home because I had bad feelings.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
because
catch
it's
it
on
that way.
Peacock. You can get like 7 days free. I did that and then canceled it.
Well, but you're like, this is what you have to offer. Peace. Um, I actually got all the fun this week. I got to see the new Dune, and it's that rare occasion where
I
Dylan is
can't wait.
praising a blockbuster.
Oh,
Um,
I can't wait though. Denis Villeneuve, come on, when does he disappoint? Like when does he ever
He
do a bad
doesn't.
movie?
I'm hearing mixed reviews, and I'll go into a quick synopsis on why I think that is. But when it comes to big, large scale blockbusters, I was just sitting. I saw it proper. I bought tickets to a IMAX theater with my fiance, and we sat in just a giant screen with an incredible sound system, and I was taken away. I was no longer on Earth. It was awesome.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, but I'll get to that. We're going to be talking about a lot of horror kind of monsters and genres. We decided to kind of go through a list of like favorite zombie movies and slashers and ghost movies, and maybe not favorites, but a few movies that we wanted to revisit this season and kind of share with each other and chit chat about.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually like the way you did this too, because like we just knew we wanted to talk about just Halloween and spooky movies and stuff because we love them. And he was like, why don't we do like one of each genre? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So well done, by the way. I thought that was like a fun way to do it. So
thank you. I kind of
I
I was gonna
struggled.
say vampires too. We didn't do that one, but we both watched Black Mass, and we could just
Yeah.
bullshit about that forever.
I struggled with ghost movies. When you said ghost movies, I realized I was like, I need to watch more ghost movies. I
uh,
almost sent you one
yeah,
called A Ghost Story because it's one that I want to see, but it's not a horror
shame on
movie.
your game. The one
But
with
it's I
I
know,
think
like I've
Casey
seen some.
Affleck's in that movie, right?
I think I don't. I think so. Yeah, like because like I think I've seen them, but I feel like all the ones that I've seen, I know you've seen, and it's not. It's
Yeah.
okay if you've seen it, but I was trying to pick stuff that I like that I wasn't sure if maybe you'd seen, but you know how it goes. So
Yeah,
well, for
that
some
one
categories.
was probably the easiest for me. Ghosts and vampires tend to be my favorite when done right because I feel like it's
Hmm.
very tragic and romantic and scary at the same time.
Yeah, I could see
Um,
that for sure.
so those were definitely some of my favorites from today. But before we dive into all that fun stuff, let's talk about what's new. I think we should start with Halloween because you had a chance to watch this. We both
Sure.
weren't huge fans of the Halloween kind of reboot that came out a few years ago. Halloween, the sequel to
I didn't
Halloween.
hate it, but I didn't really like it either. It was like fun, okay, I guess. You know, like it
That's how
was.
I felt too. When I think back
Yeah.
to it, though, I feel like the only thing I like is the tracking shot in the town. And the thing that I
Yeah.
hate more than anything else is the stupid twist with the therapist or the doctor.
Dude, it actually like, and the worst part is, I think I was with a friend, and I was like, watch the therapist be evil. I don't know why, but watch. And then like it,
Right.
I literally like threw my hands. I was like, no. I also feel like the director isn't a bad director, but I don't personally feel like the director handles horror super well, in my opinion. Like in terms of like building tension and stuff, like I don't really feel like they do that a lot. Personally. And I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of the Halloween films are kind of like that, but you know, I just like to see more of that. You know, I'd like more atmosphere, and I'd like to see more tension being built between kills and for scenes and stuff. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time since Michael Myers has faced off against Busta Rhymes. So how's the Halloween franchise doing? Fortune. How was Halloween Kills?
Why did you have to bring that up? Trick or treat, motherfucker! And then he like spin kicks him. He's like,
Ratmouse.
literally, if I'm correct, he literally is like, whoa!
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, no. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. Come on, Buster Rhymes. You're an amazing fucking rapper, but don't do this. Please don't do this.
He worked on
Oh
that spin
man.
kick, I bet. It wasn't
He
bad.
did. He did.
It wasn't bad.
Oh, he did. Oh man. Halloween Resurrection.
Oh,
May that.
I thought it was H2O. Was it
No,
Resurrection?
H2O was the good one, in my opinion. H2O was the one that was pretty good.
Oh, H2O was with.
H2O was Jamie Lee Curtis 20 years later. She's the principal
Oh,
of the school.
right.
That's like one of the few I actually really like. My only gripe about H2O was that even though it's rated R, it feels like a PG-13 movie. That's like my only gripe. What I like about it is if you watch it, the characters weren't just stupid for the sake of being stupid. They were very honest characters. The story actually was solid. It made sense. The square off was actually pretty great. The ending seemed
Yeah.
very final, which was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought H2O was actually one of the better films in the franchise. I just wish that some of the scenes had been bloodier and stuff, not for the sake of blood, but just because it felt PG-13, even though it was a rated R movie to me, in some ways. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, Halloween Kills. So literally takes place like directly after the first film, if I'm correct. Let me see here. Yeah, basically right after the first film. Yeah. So, because they kind of showed you in the trailer that obviously firemen go to the house, and she's like, "No, let it burn." uh, of course, I think Jamie Lee Curtis is great. She always is. I like her a lot. She was good, so that's a positive. And there's like, okay, so my issue with this film, it's so bad. Because
Oh.
to me, and I'm not trying to be rude, but I mean really though, like it feels like any character development that was set up for certain characters in the last movie is essentially thrown out the window in this movie. Like it's almost like, oh, the first movie did really well, we need to do two more, so let's rush these scripts quickly. I mean, I'm not saying that's what happened, but it kind of feels that way. If you're someone that's just going to see a Halloween movie, you don't care if the story's bad and it's kind of stupid, and you just want a higher kill count, you'll get that. You will get that. That definitely has a higher kill count. But I just feel like the characters kind of are meaningless, if you could even call them characters in this film. It's like they're just there, and then there are some deaths that are just there for to be dramatic, you would think, but there's nothing dramatic about it because there wasn't anything built up to it, and it just feels random. And it's like, okay, well then what was the point of having some kind of character arc for that person in the last movie? Like I just don't. There's no point. Like there's no point to any of it. And then once again, there's a lot more deaths, but I would say that like in a horror film, it's up to a director to create tension, to create fear, to really build these sequences and then deliver on something. You can make each death interesting, like you can, but
Mhm.
almost none of them are interesting in this film, and they don't really feel very scary. It just feels like someone walking around killing people, and there's nothing interesting about the way it's done at all. And then the other issue I have is this film is really really bad at like pretty much every single character in the movie in almost every scene becomes really stupid before they die. Like it's not even like sometimes, it's not even like, oh, that dumb guy that they had run off by himself. It's like every single scene people are just really stupid suddenly, like for the sake of the script. And it got to the point where halfway through the movie it was actually kind of irritating. It was like this film, it almost, Halloween Kills almost felt like a satire to me. Like I couldn't believe that the,
Ooh.
like for real though, like some of the characters that you're introduced to in the beginning, there are some cool cameos. I don't want to spoil it, but I'll just say that there are some really cool cameos. There are some sequences that are shot that are supposed to be like in the past. I thought that was handled pretty well, because the color grade and everything, it actually looks like the old footage, which is really impressive. I thought that was cool. But the way these characters are brought in and what happens to them, and just the way people die, it's like almost every scene, characters split up or they stick around, and it's in situations that no one would ever do that. And I can understand having maybe like one dumb movie in the horror movie because it's funny or whatever, but it's like
Mhm.
every single character does that. Like I think one character did something kind of smart that involved bricks in a bag, and they survived for now, I guess. But that was about it. Like every other character, even characters that you'd think were kind of cool cameos, no. Other characters that had character development just died for seemingly no reason. Um, and there's one cool shot that involves Michael Myers towards the end of the film that involves like the background kind of shifts and it's just him with like this kind of spotlighty thing. I thought that was a very cool sequence visually.
Mhm.
But I just feel like the story just feels like a bit of a mess. Like over and over again. It just keeps feeling that way. And then there's a situation that involves somebody in a hospital, and I don't want to spoil it, so I won't. But I'll just say it's like they were trying to make a point, like there was supposed to be commentary on some stuff, but I don't feel like it worked very well. It just felt very random, like in a way, like just because there wasn't anything really well that was built up to it. So like I don't know what the plan is. I don't, it almost feels like this is just something that was thrown together because maybe in the finale they want certain people to square off. I don't know, but
Uh-huh.
it definitely feels like the only way to put it is it really does feel like a mess. Like and I'm not trying to be mean, but it kind of does come off that way. Like the last film I didn't
Uh,
love, but I didn't feel like it felt like a mess. It just felt like it was kind of uninspiring, but it was okay, it was fine. But like this one actually does kind of feel like a mess. So um I guess my final judgment is if you're just there to see Michael Myers kill a bunch of people, you might have a good time. If you care about any form of story or character or anything, it's not gonna really deliver there. So that's
I
kind of my two
see.
cents.
Well, you know me. The original John Carpenter Halloween is arguably one of like two or three of my favorite slasher movies of all
It's
time,
good.
and I've had a little bit of love for the series even throughout the bad ones, but
Hmm.
I hate the boring ones, and I felt it when
Yes.
I saw the trailers. I was like, I feel like this one's not going to quite hit the mark, so I'll probably catch it like you did on
Yeah.
Peacock. I'll probably get a
I'll
7 day
say
free
I'll
trial.
say it's not boring, but it's not good. It it I'll be honest, it's one of those things where it almost does get kind of funny. Like
Ah,
and that's not what they're going for. So it's kind of like,
ah,
oh no.
I might love it.
Um uh, if you go into it with that mindset from the beginning, it could be fun. If you go in with the mindset hoping for it to be a good movie, you're going to be very disappointed. That's kind of how I'll 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 wrap that one up, I guess.
Fair enough. Well, thank
And
you
the
for
thing
going
about
through that for the both of
Oh,
us.
I did just want to say one more thing. I think
Yeah.
a big part of this also is just that studios don't know what to do with Michael because even John Carpenter, if I'm correct, Halloween was never supposed to be a franchise. Like he wrote it to be a
Mhm.
one-off. Michael Myers was supposed to be it was supposed to be the scary story on Halloween night, and he had, I believe, said that if they did sequels, he was hoping they were almost more like Halloween 3, where each
Mhm.
sequel takes place on Halloween night, but it's a completely different story, like an anthology series. So
Yeah.
Michael Myers was never really supposed to be this constantly moving thing. That's why I think when you do these movies where you try to explain why he never dies and all this stuff, it doesn't really work because it was never meant to. It was supposed to be this mystery that just ended horribly and it was it. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's part of the issue too. So
I think a lot of writers kind of confused his identity with like a Jason Voorhees. Like he was
100%.
when in the
One,
first one when they're talking about he's the embodiment of evil, they don't mean supernatural. They just mean lack
yeah,
of conscience. You know what I mean? And when that
exactly.
supernatural stuff comes into play, it kind of
It's
falls apart.
oh my god, the curse of Michael Myers,
Yeah.
the cult.
The cult. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a Celtic god that inhabits him and makes him
God.
kill people. I was literally like, this is the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen.
um,
Oh man,
Well, let me tell you a little bit about a movie that I got to see.
please.
I ran out to theaters as quick as I could and saw Denis Villeneuve's Dune. I
Yes.
am one of the folks who is going in completely blind. I'm familiar of the 80s version. I've never seen it. I've never read the book. All I know is that when it comes to sci-fi fans, the fan base holds it in incredibly high regard. It sounds like it's like the Lord of the Rings of sci-fi, which after seeing this, I can see where it's coming from. It's not a light kind of fun adventure like Lord of the Rings, but the amount of depth and character work in the story as well as the world, it makes sense.
Got it.
Um, Denis Villeneuve has made every single one of his movies has been absolutely stunning. The
Yep.
streak,
No.
the streak that he's on, it might just be unheard of. Like how many times he's just been
Yeah.
knocking it out of the park. I don't know how many other directors has a streak like he has right now.
And it even
But
started with his earlier foreign films too. Like
yeah,
like
in the
from I haven't
tendies
seen I haven't seen them
into
all, but like I've read about them and they seem very good.
yeah, and for him to take a big budget blockbuster and what he does with it, it was absolutely phenomenal. I'm gonna get into the one gripe I have, and it's
Okay.
actually kind of a sign of the times more so than the movie. The title card of this movie is Dune Part One, which will of course lead into Part Two. uh, being COVID, this movie has to be successful for a part two to be greenlit and commissioned. And this movie very much feels like act one leading into act two of a full story. It's not like Fellowship of the Ring where you have a clear defined beginning, middle, and end. You do have a clear character arc, like a very clear character arc in the main character, Paul.
Mm.
But that being said, it does feel like towards the end of the movie, they're trying to figure out where to kind of fade to black towards the end. You know what I mean?
See, I
So,
kind of hate that. I feel like even if it's a chapter, it should feel like a complete film. Like that's kind of how I feel most of the time.
yeah, that being said, so yeah, and I could see that it's a totally valid criticism. And this movie is going to, the way this movie is received long term is going to greatly depend on the existence of that second part.
Got
My
it.
only gripe. That being said, I was blown the fuck away. I have not seen a movie this transportive. I think I was telling you the last time I felt this swept away to another world was maybe James Cameron's Avatar when I saw that in IMAX
Yeah,
3D.
that was a great experience, especially in 3D. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
awesome.
The world design from the exterior shots to the big open vistas to all of the details that's put into the various worlds that you visit in the story is incredible. No detail is spared. You're really just completely taken off, and it's I don't want to get too much into the story because if you're lucky and like me, I will just say a very kind of brief 35,000 foot view of what's going on. It's about a great house um, under a galactic empire that is commissioned to, or not commissioned, but given the opportunity to manage the export of a what's called spice, and it allows for intergalactic travel. And
Okay.
it's an
So for
incredibly
those of you that
glamorous job.
play New World, it's basically Azoth.
There you go. So this great house accepts this job from the Empire to oversee and rule the people and planet of Arakan, where is the only it's the only place where spice can be gathered and distributed amongst the Empire.
Okay.
So intergalactic travel can be possible. That being
Interesting.
said, there may be something sinister working in the background. This plan may not be as kind of cut and dry as it seems, and it leads the main character Paul into a hero's journey type story that's huge, epic, incredible, and just awesome. Um, Easy stuff. The cast is absolutely incredible. Timothy Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson. This part of the movie, this first half, it's really their movie to shine. Yeah, you'll see like the poster, and you'll see a lot of huge stars on it. You'll see Oscar Isaac and Zendaya and Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Javier Bardem, and it just keeps going and keeps going.
Yeah.
And everybody does incredible work in their roles, but when it comes to like this huge stars and the people who get the most emotional work within the script in this first part, Timothy Chalamet and Rebecca Ferguson steal the show.
I love Rebecca Ferguson. She was my favorite part of Doctor Sleep as well.
Yeah, she
Yeah, she was my
me
favorite
too.
part of that movie. Like her performance was so good. Like I loved it so much that I was like I'd love to write something just for her and behave in a similar manner. Like
Yeah,
I loved it so much. Like she was so great.
yep, I totally agree. As far as side characters in this, I'd say the four that stood out most to me. Um, Oscar Isaac as the lead character's father. His name is Duke Leto Atreides,
Another
and
actor
he
that I
just
love.
yep, he brings this regalness to the role as well as this incredibly supportive father figure with just like an immense amount of responsibility. And he's awesome. Josh Brolin and Jason Momoa both bring that kind of like tough, charismatic bravado to these really macho characters that they bring into the show, and they're a
So funny
blast.
to see that from Josh Brolin because before like Thanos, that was not. He was
No,
like he's just a really serious great actor, and now
he
he's
had
like
Cable
the
before
big.
though. He had
No,
Cable right before
he
Thanos.
was Cable. Wasn't
Yeah.
Cable after Thanos though?
No, I think Deadpool 2 came out before Avengers,
Did
right?
it really? I
Nah,
don't
I
know.
may be wrong. I may be wrong.
No, you might be right. I don't know. Now I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, they were around the same time. Marvel was like, "Yo, let's do some stuff."
Yeah. Yeah. And then Stellan Skarsgård plays an incredible kind of villain to the story with an incredibly villainous name. His name is Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. And he is just and you're like, that dude is evil. Like right out the gate. And he's just this incredibly powerful, grotesque, disgusting military intelligence, and Stellan Skarsgård is just grossing it up the entire movie, and it's awesome. Yeah,
I'm sorry, it was just so.
Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. I was like,
I love it. I love
ugh,
it. It's great.
gross. um, but I will say, I was mentioning kind of the attention to detail. You'll hear this a lot. I don't know if I have anything new to say about what reviewers who have really enjoyed this have been saying, but the way that Denis Villeneuve uses scale, and he's done it in movies before, like Blade Runner and Arrival, and for anyone who saw Enemy, there's a little bit of it in that movie too.
Oh,
He
Enemy was
always
great.
has, yeah, he always has these huge sweeping landscapes, and he'll have some
Yeah.
great kind of set piece in the center of it, but then he'll either have like people or something relatable in the foreground, so it just
Yep.
brings you this feeling of scale. And that's why I'm saying this is a movie that should be seen in IMAX. It's one of those things where if you are watching it at home or watching it on an airplane or anything like that, you are seeing the movie, but you're not experiencing the intent that the creators put into what they wanted the audience to feel. You know, um, I
Okay.
also
Yeah.
saw I also saw James Bond in IMAX shortly before this, and I didn't have that feeling. I was like, yeah, this is cool. Like I could have seen it in any theater, but this movie, if anyone gets the
Yeah.
opportunity, I think that is how it should be seen. That's how it should be appreciated, and that's how, um, in my opinion, it should be reviewed. I think if anyone's seeing it
Hmm.
in a different situation, they're reviewing a different version of what was created. You know. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
so that being said,
So you feel
huge
like
fan.
it's the best way to absorb this project, basically, is through
Yeah,
IMAX,
I think,
basically.
and not only the best way to absorb it, but I think it's created for, and I think it's the artist's intent on how they wanted it absorbed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It
No,
would
that's
be
fair.
like
Yeah.
it would be like having an opinion on like a Mark Rothko painting because you're looking at it on your cell phone. It's like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah. You can have a review, but like, I care less about.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I
But
feel you.
like I said, unfortunately, it is going to be, I think the long term uh, kind of legacy of this film is going to be dependent on a second part that because we're in COVID, we have movies out right now starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck that are huge historical pieces that might not make their money
Yeah.
back. I think this movie already did
Yeah.
make its money back in worldwide gross. I think last time I checked,
Did
there was
it?
like a 165 mil budget, and I think it's already made 220. So
Well,
it's
the worldwide gross is like 223 million right now. But
cool.
from a lot of things that I've read, unless they double the budget, it's not typically considered successful because the budgets don't include like marketing budgets and stuff, which
Right,
nowadays are huge. So
right.
so if it's 160, then it probably needs to make at least 320, probably. I
Yep.
would assume. But
So it's got some work to do. It's an excellent opening weekend, but for anybody who is feeling safe and vaccinated and interested in getting back to the theaters, if you haven't yet, I think this is the movie to do it. I think if that second piece knocks it out of the park, we're going to have a new Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, like large scale hit on our hands. It was that good.
awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna be seeing it sometime this week, hopefully in IMAX with you again. So
Hell
that
yeah.
should be fun. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to it. So.
Say no more. I am in there.
And honestly,
Uh,
since it's already at 223 million, there's a good chance it probably will hit 320. So
yeah.
probably will.
And it's going to get another 20 of my dollars. So
And at
I'll
least
help
20
it
of and
along.
at least 20 of mine.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Um,
fantastic.
yeah. So that's what's new. Let's get on into the
Sure.
meat and potatoes of this thing. Let's talk about some scary movies.
So what do you want to go with first? Like we decided to recommend just like maybe not our favorite, but a film we liked in different genres. Do you want to start with zombie or
Yeah, let's start
possession?
with zombies.
Okay, let's do it.
I was really excited about my choice and then
Hmm.
actually really pissed off to where I didn't watch it again. I'm just going to work it off memory. I
Why?
recommended, oh, I'll tell you why. I,
Oh no,
oh
I
yeah,
know
I'll
what you're
tell you
gonna
why.
say. I know
Uh,
what you're...
I chose 2007's Wreck.
Yeah.
Spanish language film,
Yes.
found footage movie back when found footage movies were all the craze.
Yes.
This one stood out as something pretty special to me, and I was so excited to watch it again. It was the first movie that came to mind when we were talking about. Actually, The first movie that came to mind was 28 Days Later, but I was like, Fortune's going to choose 28 Days Later. So
That's
I'm
my
going to choose
favorite
the
zombie
second
film.
thing that comes
Yeah,
to
that's
mind.
my favorite zombie film of all time. So yeah, I would recommend that one for
Yeah.
sure.
So I took a sidestep on that one. And I was like, ooh, I'd love to watch Wreck again.
You're so nice. Thank you.
Oh, of course, of course. And not only that, it was a little bit selfish because I own 28 Days Later, and I was like, if he chooses it, it's on my Blu-ray shelf.
Yeah.
um, but I don't own Wreck,
Mhm.
and I
Neither do
went to
I.
rent it,
Yep.
and I went on my Xbox and I went to the store and I rented it, and I hit play, and I was like, oh, this is odd. It's dubbed in English. Well, that's okay. Sometimes we lose $4. I'm gonna go rent it on Amazon.
Yep.
So I went to Amazon and I rented it there, and it said ESP, and I was like,
That's what
"Great,
that's what it said
Espanol,
for me too.
Spanish, sounds
That's what it
great.
said. Yep.
Let me rent that. Another $4.
Yep.
Start it. It's in English. Not a
Yep.
problem. It said it's in Spanish. Let me change those settings really quick. Can't
Totally
change
good.
the settings.
Yep.
I Google this because I think I'm going crazy. Turns out it's a common problem with digital distribution of this movie right now. So I decided that I'm just going to remember it in its Spanish language beauty and authenticity and
So,
not watch the dubbed English version.
okay, so I watched it because I had never seen it. Now, interestingly enough, I had seen the American remake Quarantine with Jennifer Carpenter, who we will talk about later in a different film.
Yep.
And I actually have to admit, I liked Quarantine. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was
Me
a good
too.
movie.
Yep.
I thought Jennifer Carpenter was great. Now seeing the rec version, I think I kind of understand why I liked Quarantine, because Quarantine was almost like a very faithful, nearly shot for shot remake.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it almost seemed like whoever the director was in Quarantine didn't try to take liberties and necessarily do his own thing. It's like he was just trying to honor the original, which I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, so there might be some differences, but I only got to see it in the English dub, I admit, and I prefer to watch things in their original language. The English dubbing was actually quite good. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I just would rather have seen it in its original thing. Like, it never really took me out of the movie, which is great. So they did a good job.
Awesome.
But I just still prefer, to watch it in its original language, because I like to hear the performance and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But overall, from what I remember, they seemed like almost neck and neck, like to the point where I enjoyed them both kind of equally. Like, the only thing I would say, my memory could be wrong, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the lead character, the reporter in Rec, might have been a little bit more aggressive, and I don't necessarily mean in like a fight way, but in like almost like a kind of screaming uh like way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in some situations, like, I could be wrong, but I almost feel like Jennifer Carpenter's character, she did have moments like that, but there were other moments where she would be really scared but be quiet because she was scared of them hearing her. And this one, I feel like the only thing about her in Rec is I felt like she's screaming loudly all the time, and I'm like, you'd literally get everyone killed. Like
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
like I was like,
Yeah.
I really like her because she seems like a really cool person and everything, and she's just doing her job. But it seems like sometimes it's like, no, shush, 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 and then like
Yeah.
even the cameraman dies protecting her, which is also what happens in Quarantine. And I was like, man, like I feel bad, because I would have been like, if you don't be quiet, we are going to die, and I will leave you. Like, it's
Yeah.
like
I
I
will
feel
scoot
like you
over
need to
there.
be quiet. Like I'm screaming on the inside too, but it's like right now this doesn't help us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and like not all the characters were like that. It was kind of more like her, and like the other situations where she's talking but she's like kind of yelling it, and I'm like, why would you yell it right now? Like,
Yeah.
like, so that was probably my only gripe. And the truth is, I haven't seen Quarantine in a while, so it could have been the same and I don't remember. It just didn't strike me as that. But I'd say overall I liked them equally. I thought they were both very good movies. It's really creative for its time.
Mm-hmm.
It was Rec was really, really well made. I mean, they clearly, the director, especially since they were the one that originally created this, so I have to give them more credit for sure, because some of the blocking and stuff was really great. Like you had to
Yeah.
really, really plan that stuff out to get it to work that well. So yeah, really, really great movie, great recommendation. I really liked it. So and I haven't seen
Sweet.
Quarantine since I saw Quarantine once in the theater with my friend Sean. So, and that was when it came out years ago. So it was really nice because there's just so many scenes I remember being duplicated, but it does feel a little bit different, which is nice. So that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. It is pretty much a shot-for-shot remake. If I remember Quarantine appropriately too. The things I remember liking more about Wreck is the apartment feels a little dirtier. And I
Hmm.
feel even though it's shot for shot, there's something about the authenticity of the lead actress where Jennifer Carpenter is also amazing. But maybe it was just because I wasn't familiar with this actress when I saw the movie. For her to go from this like slight frustration that it's just like this fluff piece kind of journalism at the
Yeah,
firehouse, and then they go
yeah.
to the apartment complex, and all of a sudden things start getting locked down, and the paranoia sets in, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden like it's kind of building and building, and then the body falls from the fifth floor, and from then on
Dude,
out
yeah, that
it's
that
just
was
relentless. Like from
yeah,
then on out, the rest of the movie is just
yeah.
relentless.
That
You
was
know what I
probably
mean?
one of my favorite parts, and I remember going, "Was that in quarantine?" I don't remember, but like it
Yeah,
probably was. But like I was just like, yeah, when the firefighter just falls, like it's just like, oh shit, like
yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
it was so good, like it was just so good, like yeah,
totally.
it was great.
And the build up to the last 20 minutes in the penthouse,
Oh
which was
yeah,
also pretty shot for shot in quarantine. That last
hmm
20 minutes, in my opinion, is one of the most kind of terrifying finales of any zombie movie
it
I've
is.
seen. When I think of
I
zombie
agree.
set pieces, there's a few that really stand out to me. One is that one. Another one that I really love is the intro to 28 Weeks Later, which I don't love the rest of the movie as much, but I love that first scene in the
The intro's
farmhouse.
great. Yeah, the
Yeah,
intro's really good.
and it's just one of those things where I watch it. I am pretty like numb to scary movies. Like I'll still jump to loud noises because that's how bodies work.
Yeah, that's
But
not scary, by the way, directors. Loud noises are not good directing. It's cheating. You're using the nervous system to do what it's supposed to do. You're not actually scaring anybody.
yeah,
Just thought
exactly.
I'd say that.
But when I watch that last 20 minutes of Wreck, I definitely feel like my arms crossing. Like I'm
For
definitely
sure. Yeah.
tighter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that happened with me too. Like that last 20 minutes, I think I like made fists and I like didn't let them go.
Yeah.
And I always do this thing where like my mom taught me when I was a kid because you can get scared and bite your tongue. So like you
Hmm.
kind of like whenever I'm watching horror movies, even though I'm not really scared, I like keep my teeth together just to make sure so a loud
Yeah.
noise doesn't make me like bite my tongue or something. But
Yeah.
I love it. I love the tension. Love it. So
Awesome.
good.
And speaking of jump scares, my favorite recent jump scare that I felt was really earned was, I'm not going to spoil exactly what happens, but it was in Midnight Mass, and it was when the character walks into the church, and
Oh
you
yeah,
know what I'm talking about. And there's the jump scare, and it's a silent jump scare.
it kind of
There's
is.
no
Yeah.
noise to it,
If
but
if it's the part you're thinking of, I'm pretty sure
I'll just
it's
say
more towards the end, right?
there's a priest and a tall man in the church,
Yes,
and the
yes, yeah.
character walks in, the tall man turns around.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I loved it so
it
much.
blew me back in my chair. I was
It was
not ready
great.
for it.
Especially from that
Yeah.
perspective. You're just like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
exactly.
great. Dude, Midnight Mass
Um,
is so great. Like honestly, that video I'm working on it right now for the YouTube channel. It is taking me time though. Like cuz I just have so much to
take your
say.
time.
Like I do. This might be my first like 20-minute video. I don't know. We'll see.
Hell yeah. I'm probably gonna. I actually restarted watching Hill House recently, but right after that, I'll probably rewatch Midnight Mass again, and then I'll catch up with Bly
Nice.
Manor.
I still need to finish Bly Manor because I got to episode 5. It was pretty good. I
That
need to finish
show
it
is
though.
just, oh my god, it's heartbreaking. It's so good, but it's
Yeah, it's what I like
so
about it though
heavy.
is it is a it is a haunting, but it's not a horror. You know, it's not a
Yeah,
horror. It's very much a love story in a lot of ways. That's what it seems
yep,
like so far. You
totally.
know, it's
Let's
kind of
talk
beautiful though.
28 Days Later, man. Uh, Danny Boyle doing his like guerrilla filming
Yes,
project. Um,
for sure. And I love that like that I love the intent. Like it's clearly very deliberate that like it almost looks like the film was shot with like a camcorder rather than like a cinema cam, which
yep,
I wouldn't be surprised if he was. And it was written by Alex Garland, who's gone on to do wonderful things. Like he's gone on to write and direct now. He did Annihilation, he did Ex Machina. He
mm-hmm,
also wrote Sunshine, which Danny Boyle also directed, which I thought was great. Like
yep,
he's just a very good writer, and Danny Boyle's a very, very good director, and he definitely has a unique style. So the style of this film is one of the things that I remember being really, really captured by when I saw the trailer. I was like, it almost looks like shitty film footage, like
yeah,
when I first saw it. And
yeah,
then I was like, the crazy thing though is it almost gives it like this documentary-esque feel, even though it's not a documentary at all. Like, it was a really interesting idea. Um, and I also like I like the zombies in this are very different. I like the origin story of zombies in this film. Like, because to
Yeah.
me, zombies walking around and stuff, it can only be so scary. Like, that's one of the reasons why one of the other zombie films I actually do like is Zombieland, because I feel like it makes fun of a lot of those tropes. You
Yeah.
know, like when
Yeah.
he's like, "You need good cardio," and you just do circles and stuff. I was like, "Yeah, exactly." Because like
Yeah.
I used to always say shit like that when you're a kid. You're like, "Why don't you just run in circles? They take forever, right?" But like when they're like this and they're rabid and they're fast and the way they look at you with the red eyes and they shake, there's something about it. Like watching this, I haven't seen this actually since the first time I watched it. I only saw it once and I never forgot it. But seeing it again, I realized my favorite scene is when he goes into the church in the beginning and there's all those bodies
Yeah.
and he goes hello and two bodies stand up and two guys stand up, but it's like so quick, like they stand up and turn and look at him and they're just shaking, so it's so unnervingly creepy, like
Yep.
it is so. I remember I saw it and I was like, whoa, I forgot about that. I was like, god, I love this movie, like it's just
Yeah.
so good. And it has really great characters that are just really honest, which I like. There's
Yeah.
no trying to make a point or anything really, like it's really is about survival. And one character does learn about that it is about more than survival, which is great. um
Hmm.
and I think that is a hardcore lesson to learn, because I think most of us in that situation, the people that do survive, it probably would become this pattern of it being all about survival and forgetting to enjoy the things that you can enjoy. I can totally understand that. um I
Yeah.
also I also actually forgot about the scene where he goes to check on his parents and finds them in the bed,
Yeah.
holding his picture. Like that scene like really gets to me.
Yeah.
um I just feel like the way it's handled is really, really. It's not just that it's really great, but it's actually interesting. Like it's really, really interesting. Like even going back and rewatch it, it is just as interesting now as it was when I watched it then. And I
Hmm.
feel like this genre, it's so saturated. It's starting to die down a little bit more now, but for like a good 10 years there, it was like so saturated that you almost got, it was almost like superheroes. It's like, oh, can I have something else that's not a zombie movie or TV show
Right.
or whatever? Because there's only so many ways you can do it. And I imagine someone will come up with something new soon. But like for a while, they were all kind of just the same, And
Hmm.
this took a very different perspective, very different characters, very different kind of zombie, and it also threw in the whole apocalyptic feel of how people will be near the end and what people do to survive, even what people just feel they need to, things that people need that are worth existing for, which is a theme that's covered with the soldiers, because some of
Yeah.
the soldiers, literally what's happening with them and what's promised is awful, but it was actually happening out of an attempt to, some of them were literally going to commit suicide because they're like, what's the point of still being here, like, promising
Hmm.
people things that aren't really theirs to have. But it's, like it's really interesting, like the things that people will do to survive. And I think how this movie explores those ideas with characters. Like, and I don't know why I'm still talking like it's a spoiler-free review. I'm sorry, but like promising them women, for instance,
Yeah.
it's really fucked up. But he did it clearly not just for himself, but he's trying to keep his boys, as he calls them, alive because he needs them to defend the property. So how do you
Hmm.
keep them alive? You give them something they want. So you promise them women so they don't kill themselves, so that you still have soldiers. To, you know what I mean? Like it's like everyone's doing what they're doing to survive. And if you think about it, I mean, I hate saying it, but he's almost an extreme example of Naomi Harris's character Selena, if you think about it. Because in the beginning, she'll do whatever she has to survive. Even her friend, if you get bitten, you're killed. And I understand that mentality. It's fucked up, but I get it. But if you think about it, he's kind of doing it too, but just to an extreme degree on the other end. It's like this is where this evolves to. Like, who knows, if you stay this way, if you might end up like him later. Like, in a way, if you really think about it, he's kind of like her methodology just gone awry, like totally all the way. Just
Yeah.
survival. Like that's it. Um, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a great movie to me. So
I agree. One thing I really enjoy doing is looking at movies kind of in the context of big events around that time. And actually,
hmm
this came out 2003, 2002. And I think
yeah, I think it was 2002. I think
yeah,
yeah,
there's
two,
absolutely a lot of themes of a post 9/11 film. And I
one
think
hundred percent.
the rage virus itself, the conversations around domestic violence and violence in the media and how it's affecting us were the most prevalent conversations in the media during that time.
Yep.
So
Mass
it being
hysteria was another one too.
mass hysteria, yeah.
Yep.
So the quote rage virus, the idea that they were experimenting on what uh, depictions of these images would do to animals, and the idea that that
Yeah.
could transfer to humans and it's turning into this. You're right. The zombies in this movie are they're terrifying. They're
Hmm.
constantly seizing. They're sprinting. There's no getting away from them. They
And
don't
it
even.
happens so quickly. Like it's
Yeah.
really quick. Like you turn within like 30 seconds. Like there's no you have to
Yep.
wait till you die or anything. Like that's another thing that's scary about it. Like
Yeah, and when they catch you, it's not like they're just trying to bite you. They bludgeon you. They're throwing
yeah.
up on you. It's incredibly unnerving.
Hmm.
Um, my favorite sequence in the movie is after you. What was the main character's name? Will, right?
I
Uh,
believe it was
oh no, it
Will.
was
Yeah.
Jim. It was
It's
Jim.
Jim. No, Jim. Yeah. Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Killian Murphy's character Jim, falls in with this kind of ragtag group
Hmm.
led by Selena, and they're like you said, they're all very untrusting of each other. And my favorite sequence in the movie is it's kind of in three parts. It starts where they meet with Brendan Gleeson's character, who's the
Yep.
father, and he has his daughter Hannah, and they are all in this incredibly warm apartment. They have Christmas lights, and he makes them
Yeah.
tea,
It's great.
and they decide they get this radio signal to potential military base in Salvation. So they decide to go on the road trip in the movie. And my favorite part is when they start coming together at the grocery store. And there's this
Yeah.
amazing sequence of them shopping around, and it's incredibly colorful, and it's very offset by just the bleakness that you've been surrounded by in the whole movie.
It's like a moment of normalcy. Like right,
Yeah,
and they're so happy to just go grocery shopping
yeah,
safely.
yep,
And the song choice is great. I haven't heard that song since 2002, probably.
yeah,
Dun 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 dun
yep.
dun 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 dun.
Um, and then it goes to the sequence in the tunnel, and they get
Yes.
out of the tunnel, and there's a sequence where the blood drips into Brendan Gleeson's eye,
Oh yes,
and
so
his
sad.
performance in that last like 90 seconds of him
It
talking to
is.
his daughter, like, stay away from me, I
Hmm.
love you, is by far my favorite part of the movie.
It
I
is
love it
so good.
so much.
It is so good.
Um yeah, and I think that whole sequence kind of made this it's probably my favorite zombie movie too. I haven't seen one that I've enjoyed as much.
Yeah.
I didn't even I remember so well. I've seen it countless times, but I decided to watch 28 Weeks Later again instead. I knew we were going to talk about
Yeah.
28 Days.
Yeah, I think I told you. I remember thinking it was okay, but I remember some people like loved it, and yeah, I don't know. I only saw it once
Yeah.
though, just like I'd only seen this once. So
There's some cool ideas in 28 Weeks Later, but it's far more silly than 28
hmm
Days Later is.
yeah,
Um,
sounds
the
about
way
right.
that outbreak happens, I think, is really creative and interesting. Due to a betrayal that happens in the beginning of the movie, there's a
Which is the best scene, if I remember
which is the best
correctly.
scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. A father and mother are they sent their children away right before the outbreak happened, and they're surviving with this elderly couple and a couple other people who came along in this boarded up barn house. And a child comes to the door begging to be let in because he's been chased for miles or kilometers. So they feed him, and very shortly after, everything falls apart, and there's this amazing sequence of the father who runs upstairs with his wife, and the wife runs to save the child, and the father runs into the other room, and zombies come between them, and the father has a very unfortunate decision where it's hardly a betrayal. Like a
Yeah.
bunch of zombies come in the room, the only way to save her is potentially to sacrifice himself and throw himself in between, but he's human. He doesn't do that. He closes the door and runs for his life.
hmm
Awesome scene running in a field.
Yeah.
Um, Cuts a little bit down the line, and you're in a kind of a haven zone where the military is. It's under martial law. The military is set up like groceries and a pub, and people are returning to normalcy. And it turns out that his wife didn't die in that room. She has some sort of immunity to the
hmm
virus, but not
Yeah.
entire immunity. She just
Yeah.
doesn't have the effects, but she's a carrier.
Yeah. So you still have to be careful, but she's. It's like, oh, the awkwardness.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there's that awkward scene where she's discovered and brought back into a medical facility for testing. And somehow, just because the movie's silly, he's able to sneak into this military testing facility without anybody seeing her, with the
Oh
one
yeah.
person who
It's
could
basically it's
potentially be a
basically
cure.
it's basically like swordfish. We'll just sneak into the police station.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Exactly. He's like, I'll just sneak into the military. He's like, I have a key card. It's fine.
like
Uh,
everything's all good.
yeah, and this is in the military is debating on what they should do with her, and they decide that they're going to execute her. It's too dangerous. And
Or
between
study her, which is smart considering she has immunity, but whatever.
yeah, that's what one of the characters
Hopefully,
says. She's like,
hopefully
we could
with one of
study
her with
her,
her
and then
consent, yeah. But
Idris Elba's like, you could study her corpse, and I'm like, bet.
well said.
Yeah,
Well
but
said, stupid character.
yeah, there's a scene where the husband reunites with her, and they have this awkward moment, and then he kisses her, but yeah, and then he rages out, and
Stupid.
somehow they're in a locked room, by the way, which it's a really cool scene
Yeah.
because he doesn't know that she's infected. He's just happy
Yeah.
to see her again. So that
Yeah.
kiss, and then he like kills her really brutally. He like turns into a zombie and like smashes her head and like gouges her eyes, and it's really fucked up.
Yeah. It's really
But
awful.
he's in a locked room, and somehow, I swear to God, zombies are tanks in this movie. They charge through these doors. No doors can stop the zombies in this movie. It's ridiculous. I don't care if it's metal, vibranium, whatever it is, they can get through them.
You expect
So
him to scream out, "I'm a juggernaut, bitch!"
yeah, and just run through the walls. And he breaks out, and then you follow this
Yeah.
new ragtag group led by Hawkeye, who's a sniper who doesn't want to shoot
Exactly.
people anymore. And
Yeah, pretty much. Which is the
and
last problem you want your soldier to have, who's with you in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Like, I understand you're going through things, but I need that to stop right now.
right.
Like, I need you to want to shoot people again.
Exactly. So I don't know if we'll ever get 28 months later, but
Wait,
I
there's
was
there's
saying
another
this.
one.
I believe there was another one being written.
Oh no.
But I think I said this. I liked this movie less than I thought I remembered. And that usually doesn't happen. A lot of times when I revisit movies, I tend to like them more because I'll see things I didn't see before. But this movie, I thought it was way sillier than I remembered it being.
Yeah.
Outside of a couple scenes.
No, I feel you on that one because I would, because like I always thought it was okay, I guess, but like some people were like, it's really good. It's like as good as the first one, and that's how someone told me to watch it because I was like, that first movie is like so special. I don't think a sequel was necessary. It makes me, I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
And then I watched it and I was just like, it didn't spoil it, but I don't really need to see it again. Like it was meh, like I don't know. So I didn't hate it. It wasn't like I was like this is bad. It was more like it just didn't seem like it really needed to be made. It seemed like it was first one did really well. Let's make another one, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. More mass hysteria zombie films, please. Or if you're gonna do a show, more of season 1 of The Walking Dead because that was awesome. I don't know what
okay,
happened after that, but
so I'm in the minority where I actually didn't hate season 2. I liked season 2, and I liked the character development
yeah,
with John Bernthal, and I loved the
Shane.
ending.
Yeah,
Like
same,
yeah, like
same.
I like some people didn't like it. I understand that. I understand behind the scenes why some people revolt against it because of what happened with the showrunner and everything with Darabont. I get that. I
Yeah,
understand that season was what it was because their budget got cut. I get all that, but I think what they did with that budget cut, I liked it. It was very slow, but the
yeah,
character development with John Bernthal was fantastic. Like
awesome.
I actually liked season 2. Like I'll say it. Like some people
I
didn't.
like season 2 also. I just
Yeah,
think I think there was a dip in quality from 1, but I thought 2 was good. And I still
see,
quote, "Let me ask you something. Let me tell you something. Let me say something." All the time.
yeah, 3 is when I started to be like, oh no, there's the town,
Oh
and you're
no,
like, and
they
you're
have
like,
a villain with an eye patch. Uh oh,
yeah,
like
exactly,
this is a
and it's
red
the
flag.
town. Yes, you're like, oh yes, I trust this person. Wink.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
season 4, if I'm correct, basically is part 2 of season 3, if I remember right. And then I saw season 5, and I saw up until where Negan shows up and kills certain people, and I was just like, oh, I'm out. Like it's just. I feel like The Walking Dead. What's frustrating about it is it has moments of brilliance, and then it
yes,
has moments of complete laziness. It's like I get whiplash, like filmmaker whiplash of oh it's great, oh it's terrible, like back and forth.
yeah.
That was my issue with it. I was like consistency, like please,
Yeah,
like
I don't know what season it was, and I certainly haven't seen the last 2 or 3, but I feel like it hit a certain point where the entire show became Rick being like, "We are better than this," and then doing something
basically,
terrible, and then doing something a little bit worse than last season. And then the next season he's like, "We're
yeah,
better than this," and then he
yeah.
does something worse, and
And then
like
you
they
have
just kind of
then
cycle.
You have Glenn, and who's the act? I love the actress that plays. I forgot the woman who comes on that Glenn falls in love with, but she was in Vampire
Maggie.
Diaries too. Glenn and
Yeah.
Maggie, and you have them saying things constantly like, "I don't think this is a good idea," and it's like, "Don't listen to them." Like it's
Yeah.
like, don't listen to them. And Carol was my favorite character. Like Carol is great, and
Yep.
even throughout the show, multiple times she's like, "You're the leader." But I don't think this is a good idea. It's like a series of people saying, "I think this is a bad idea."
I remember
Like, all
when I
right,
was
well,
really into the show, nothing pissed me off more than Lori.
Oh, Lori, she drove me nuts.
I
I'm
was
with
heated
you.
all the time. She was like,
Yeah.
"I needed someone," and then she hooks up with Shane,
I
and then it
know.
turns out that the baby might be Shane. She's like, "Rick, he's dangerous. Like
I
he's real
know. I
dangerous."
know. Dude, I hate, and the worst part is I really love that actress. She played it
Yeah,
well. Like
she
she's
did.
great. I just hate, and the cool thing is I like that. I like when you're not afraid to make some characters detestable. Like you know, like not all characters are likable. I like
Yep.
that I kind of like that I hated her. Just like in Midnight Mass, I love hating Bev. I think I've told you that.
Bev was such a piece of shit.
I by the end of like episode 3, I was like, I hate this woman and she's playing it so well. And
Yep.
she's exactly what she's supposed to be, and I hate her like so much.
I
I
know.
do.
My favorite Bev moment was when
The school.
no, not the school. It's after a big event with the major character, and he's sitting across the priest learning about like this new
Yes.
situation that he's in.
Oh.
And then Bev comes in, and the
She
main
looks
character is an atheist, and
yeah.
he's explaining that this isn't an act of God,
Well,
what's going on, and she
well, is it
comes
really a
in,
main character? Because I feel like he's like the introduction, but then everyone's kind of
who
equally
we
like.
assume is the protagonist. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I guess
Yeah,
he's the antithesis, which is kind of what my video is about. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. You're right. I get what you mean. Yeah.
But he goes in. He's an atheist, and Bev is, I mean, I guess a devout Catholic, but
She's an
she,
ideologue,
yeah,
just like the priest is.
exactly. But she gets into a slight argument where the main character suggests that maybe what's supernatural isn't supernatural and
Yeah.
what they're doing isn't good. And Bev
Yeah.
has this huge outburst of, "You have been given a gift of God and you need to be grateful," and this and that and third. And then she pauses because she doesn't really lose her composure much in the show. But then she pauses
Yeah.
and she just goes, "I apologize. I'm frustrated."
And I remember when she said that, I was like, oh, please change that word. If frustrated is synonymous with jealous as fuck.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
was like,
exactly.
you're so jealous that he got this quote unquote gift. And
Yep,
not, especially being an atheist because of what you believe, and you're so frustrated that you
yeah,
weren't blessed, so to speak, with it. It's so
yeah.
funny,
And
like
let
how
me
angry she was. Yeah.
I haven't seen all the shows this year, but what I have seen, if Hamish Linklater doesn't get an Oscar for his performance as Father John Hill, I
Oh,
don't
dude,
know
he
what
was
we're doing.
so good.
It was
Dude, he was
insane.
so good. Dude, his speeches too as the preacher in moments, they're
Yeah.
so intense. And I'm not religious at all. And I'm like, dude, he's like selling that room. Like car.
Hmm.
And the worst part is I want to say it's like super car salesman because he's so good at it, but it's not because he genuinely believes what he's saying. Like it's not
Right.
that's what makes it interesting. He's not to him, he's not lying. Like he
Yeah.
genuinely believes everything that he's telling them, and you believe that he believes it. Like his conviction is so strong. Like
Hmm.
it's magnificent. I know people who aren't even into film recently who've told me the same thing. They're like, whoever that actor is that played the priest was fantastic, and I'm like, he was. Like he totally was. And I've
Yeah.
seen him because he was in season 2 of The Newsroom,
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen
and
season two of
I
Newsroom.
hated
Yeah.
him in that because he was a
Yep.
lying, sniveling little shit, and I hated him in that movie. So when I first saw him in this show, I was like, I kind of have residual hatred from your other
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
So I kind of started not trusting him, even though I started to like him, kind of, and then I started not trusting him because I was like, my only other experience with this actor, he played someone I despised.
Yeah, man, I know we're getting off track, but that scene where it's kind of revealed what he experienced on his trip to
Yeah.
I think it was Jerusalem, and he's giving this monologue, and in the background it keeps
Hmm.
cutting to these fumes, these religious wooden carvings of
Yep.
the events that are going on, and I was like, this
It's very
show
cool.
is
It's so good.
incredible.
I genuinely think Midnight Mass is a masterpiece. Like
Yeah.
for what it is, for what it's meant to be, it is kind of just perfect. Like it is
Yeah.
literally perfect. It is probably one of my favorite miniseries of all time. It is 100% my favorite piece of work from Mike Flanagan. Like 100%. To
Hmm.
me, it surpasses everything he's done. Like by far. Like it's so good to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I really liked Midnight Mass. And you know what? Not off topic because it's a creepy horror thriller kind of Stephen King-esque show, and it's Halloween. So perfect time, guys, to go watch Midnight Mass.
That is true, and it's brought me back to reading Salem's Lot again.
Oh,
It's been
nice.
a very long time, so I've been
Actually,
enjoying that.
I actually listened to that on Audible for the first time last year. So it was one of
Nice.
the Stephen King books that I don't there's plenty I haven't read, but it was one of the classics I hadn't read, so I listened to it. It was good. It was good. I liked it.
Yep.
I actually
Cool.
went and watched the movie too that they did because I just wanted to see how it measured up. So
Did you see? You saw all the inspiration, yeah, in Midnight
Oh,
Mass,
oh,
and
oh,
the
oh,
oh
dude.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. I think
For
Midnight Mass
sure.
did it better, in fact, coincidentally,
100%.
but
100%.
the inspiration is on
Yeah.
its arms,
So
like
what
it's
what I
great.
also like about Midnight Mask is it's a mixture of that thing without spoiling it because this is newer, so I don't really want to spoil it. It's a
Hmm.
mixture of that thing and almost like kind of a gargoyle to me. Like
Yeah,
it's the way he kind of that's the approach he went with it for me for imagery and stuff. So
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Let's talk possession movies, man.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
let's see. Yours,
So
I mean, you chose a ghost movie that was also kind of a possession movie. Was your
kind
possession
of
movie Emily Rose or Skeleton Key?
it was the Exorcism of Emily Rose was the possession film
Got it. This is
because
one of the
that's a
ones.
possession film that's not a ghost film.
Yes.
Technically, Skeleton Key could be either.
Yeah, it
Another
could be either.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's see. And I chose for possession movies. You know me. We saw Hereditary together
Hereditary.
back in
I knew
2018, and
yeah.
I walked in. I was like, "Is this a 10 out of 10? I think it's a 10 out of
it's
10."
it's pretty good. I love Hereditary. Yeah,
Yeah.
when I saw Possession colon before I even read Hereditary, I just knew it was going to be Hereditary,
Yeah.
like because I know
Exactly.
it's you.
I'm
And
like, let
honestly,
me
it
be
would have
clear.
been one of the ones I possibly picked too if it hadn't been picked. So it's
Yeah,
really good.
it is.
Ari
It is really good.
Aster, man, that guy just assaulted the world with his creativity.
He did, and he just won't stop.
No,
He will not stop.
and I'm okay with
So,
this.
let's
What do
start
you
with
call it?
Exorcism
Horribly.
of Emily Rose.
Sure.
You know, I was looking into who directed this because I've seen it
Scott
before, but I didn't
Derrickson.
remember. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Scott Derrickson, who
Who also
is
did
awesome.
Sinister, which I actually like. I enjoyed Sinister.
I liked
Um,
Sinister a lot too,
and then
and I
he
also
also did
liked The Day the
Doctor
Earth Stood
Strange.
Still. Oddly enough, with Keanu
Oh, he
Reeves.
did do that, didn't he? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That was actually an okay remake. Yeah, and
It
then
wasn't like the best, but it was cool.
it was all right. Yeah, it was okay. And then he
Yeah,
also did Doctor Strange. So.
he did. He has a new movie out too that I want to see with Ethan Hawke called The Black Phone.
Oh yeah, I saw
Um,
the trailer for that. Yeah, that looks interesting actually.
it does look interesting. I don't know if like it looks good, but I want to see
Yeah,
it. You know what I mean?
that's exactly how I feel. That's why I said interesting. Like I don't know if it looks good or bad. It just looks interesting. It's an
Yeah,
interesting idea.
yeah.
So
I hope it's good. I like Ethan Hawke in horror movies anyway. So,
yeah, yeah,
um, Scott Derrickson, it doesn't seem like he misses much. I don't like particularly love anything he's done, but I've certainly enjoyed
yeah.
pretty much all of his movies, including
That
Exorcism of Emily
that's
Rose.
what I would say. Like I like his movies. I've never loved them, but I don't dislike them at all. Like he's a solid director. It seems like so.
Yeah, yeah. So, Exorcism of Emily Rose is pretty early, and you know, for anyone taking on a movie around exorcism, unfortunately, they have, you know, the big exorcist kind of hanging over them in the background.
Yeah.
It's one of those
Yes.
situations where it's been done so well that
Yeah.
it's
For
hard to
sure.
put your mark on something like that.
Hmm.
And, you know, he does his best with kind of the setup of this movie. Um, and
I would say
it's
that's true. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, he really brings it into. We were mentioning this a little bit earlier. It's partially kind of a tried and true possession and exorcism movie of, you know, the devil and demons. They're always after young girls for some reason instead of influential people.
Yeah, it's
But
fascinating how that works out.
yeah, exactly.
Apparently,
Um,
demons are pervs. Like they're awful.
right.
Like
Well, Jennifer Carpenter's on the chopping block in this one, and
yeah.
her performance, like her physical performance in these
Dude.
exorcism scenes, is nuts. She
It's
is like
yeah. It,
wreathing and
it was my first time
bending, and
ever seeing her too. Like I don't think I'd
yeah,
ever seen her in a movie. She just blew me away. I was with my friend Sean, and then
yeah,
I originally went and saw it because um, I've always liked Laura Linney and Tom
yep,
Wilkinson's great, but I've always loved Laura Linney. I think she's great. So
yeah,
I was like, oh, she's in an exorcism movie, and then yeah, I was really excited that the film tackles it from a unique perspective. So
yep. And my favorite part about this movie is actually during the setup. It starts very early in the courtroom, and we learned that Emily Rose didn't make it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and it goes into the courtroom, and you're immediately, it's one of those things like where comedians will do this, where comedians will like tell a joke very early on in the set that may be like incredibly disrespectful, but they'll intentionally try to lose the audience, and then they'll work through their set to try to bring them
to
back.
try to gain them back again.
And
Yeah,
the
exactly.
setting of this movie does that because it sets it up like this little girl died, here's the facts and the science behind it, and then the
Yeah.
main characters are like, actually, your honor, there are ghosts in her blood. You know what I mean? Once again, it's one of those, and you're like, so these
It's
the
not
characters.
But I think we discussed this though, because remember when we were talking about The Conjuring 3, right? Because
Yeah,
that's like, and I had said this movie is a little lackluster, and I think something that would have been great with it is if they did almost like an exorcism of Emily Rose. And I think we said that, and I was like, if it showed pieces of the courtroom situation with it, I think it could have really helped certain aspects of this movie. I think it would have
totally.
elevated a bit more. So like the fact that you're using that joke, it's like it brings me back to that conversation we actually had. It's kind of true.
Yep,
It's like this movie did things right that I think that movie could have learned from based on the kind of movie that they decided to make. Um,
totally,
but
totally.
yeah,
And I like that it's actually interwoven and intercut. Like as things are going on in the courtroom, it's directly relating to the events that are going
yes,
on with Emily Rose during her possession and her exorcism. And
yeah,
it keeps it really engaging and really interesting. And like if Jennifer Carpenter isn't carrying the movie, then Tom Wilkinson certainly is the
yeah,
priest. He does an amazing job of
it
just sitting
100%.
there and looking like, holy shit, this is above my pay grade.
Yeah, and then Laura Linney I think is great because she's really good at playing the stern lawyer who's originally in it just for her own promotion, but as she's experiencing these things, she's starting to feel really just uneasy about everything because she's an agnostic by nature, but she's experiencing things and she's trying to be that strong woman in kind of a man's world. Like she's essentially has this boss that seems kind of like a like he just seems like he's very business and it's like he's making her kind of walk through hoops even though she deserves it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like she's being this tough person that she needs to be in the world that she's in, but you're seeing kinks in her armor when she's experiencing some of these things and she can't really explain them. Like you know what I mean? Like she's trying to keep it together, but she's definitely like bearing witness to something that seems off. You know,
Yeah.
and I thought that that was an interesting aspect because it lends to kind of her rivalry with the other lawyer in the room who ends up actually being a religious person, but he's doing his job and bringing it back to the facts.
Hmm.
And it's I love the juxtaposition of that room though, because she's the atheist defending someone on religious and spiritual grounds against someone who is religious who's defending someone on scientific grounds and
Yeah.
like basically calling her, the situation a lie. You know what I mean? It's like the opposite of what you would expect to happen. Um,
Right. Right.
so there's just a lot going on there that I think is really interesting writing wise. So
Yep. And I also think it was really I don't brave's not the right word. It wasn't brave how the movie ended, but I thought it was surprising how the movie ended, how the trial does not go towards the way that you would expect it to.
yeah,
That
I agree.
the priest would be exonerated. He's actually tried for criminal negligence
Hmm.
for his kind of part in the acts that go on in the movie, and I thought that was a really
Agreed.
excellent ending.
And I liked it
Um,
too because I actually had said if I was a juror, I'm a rational empiricist all the way. So like if there's this thing that's really really unprecedented, then fine. But because you have all of these scientific explanations that very well could be true, I probably would have agreed with the jurors to be honest.
right.
But I thought the idea of what happens afterward with the sentencing was kind of great because it's like fine, you're guilty, but I don't really feel like, based on you and Emily's beliefs, you were negligent in the sense of doing what you thought was right, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like negligence typically is like, I just it feels like it's true, but it's not true. If that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so
And what I think I enjoyed most about this is actually, horror movies like during this time, this was also early 2000s, like
yeah.
2003 or 5 or something like that.
Let me look.
Um,
It's 2005. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of times, this era of horror movies kind of sucked.
for sure.
Just to be
Yeah,
frank. And
they did.
it was just kind of a time where studio driven horror movies were incredibly safe.
Yes,
And this one is actually pretty safe too. But I think
it is.
that it's a cut above the other horror movies during that time. Like when I think of this time, I think like, I don't know, Amityville Horror, the remake with Ryan
Oh,
Reynolds, and
oh no.
like
Yeah,
Orphan, and
The
like,
Haunting.
yeah, The Haunting.
You know what's
But
weird about The Haunting? It's not really a
huh,
great movie, but the set was gorgeous. Like the
beautiful
house
set.
and the background. Like it's one of those films that even though I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think
Yeah,
it's great either. It's like okay, but it's an okay movie I've watched a few times because it is kind of a cool atmosphere, for a movie. Like it was
totally.
cool. Yeah, that
Um,
location was great, whatever it was.
Yep. And for this one, what I thought was really cool was even though it was, I'm pretty sure it was PG-13, or if it's R, it's a very light R. But
Hmm.
it's
It's
not
PG-13,
only
so yeah.
yeah, it's not only very smart for the reasons that we were talking about with the debates that go on in the courtroom, but it's still that's not the point. It's still pretty frightening. A
Yeah,
lot of
it
the
is.
exorcism scenes are really intense.
The barn scene always stuck with me, like,
Yeah, the
always.
barn scene is great, and I also like the imagery of the gray tree and the gray
Oh, yeah.
grass. You
It's
know,
beautiful. And for some reason, I remember being really creeped out the first time I watched this when her boyfriend wakes up in the bed and he's like,
yeah.
"Where are you?" And then he just looks down and she's like frozen this
She's
really
like,
creepy
ah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that part wasn't scary, but, like, the waking up and just him reacting and then just cutting to that creepy shot of her looking at him on the floor was really creepy. Like, it was really effective. It's like a lot, and a lot of these things, they don't cost a lot of money. It's just a great performance from Jennifer Carpenter, really, and the director capitalizing on it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know. It's just
yeah.
she was just marvelous. She's
If
great and everything.
I know I'm excited to see her again. Well, I don't know if I'm excited to see her again. I don't know if I saw her in a promotional poster or not. That she's in the new season of Dexter, which I was like, what the fuck? But there's
How? No. Ugh, okay.
I know you're not excited for it. I'm excited for it, but
Well, after
um,
that last season, like not even
I
the last season,
know.
just the ending of that last season. Like the season was
Yeah,
okay, and then those last like two episodes, I was just like, oh come on! Like I was like, it was so bad. Like, oh,
yeah, it was
it's
bad.
just
But I
so.
will
It
say
was
the
one of the
trailer for
worst
the new
endings.
season was really good. I thought it was a really good
I saw
trailer.
the trailer. I'll probably end up watching it sadly, but I almost feel like what makes me mad is I almost feel like on principle if I had principles, which I should. I should not watch it on principles, and I would hope people wouldn't watch it to punish Showtime for ending a show badly just to be able to bring someone back. Because from what I read, the writers had an ending planned, and it had to get scrapped because from what I read, Showtime basically told them at the beginning of the last season, however you decide to end this, we want you to decide to keep him alive, which kind of ruined their entire plan from what I was reading. So, uh, if that's true, that's really disappointing. Because, like, yes, maybe you wouldn't have been
Yeah,
able to get him back, but you would have had this amazing wonderful send off ending, maybe, to a great show.
yeah, and maybe there would
So
have been a way to keep him alive that was better than what we got, but yeah, that ending was rough. But
it
to
was so
you,
rough.
I thought it was going downhill for quite a while. I think there were a lot of plot lines that just I didn't care for, like his protege. I didn't care for the whole
Lumen, you mean?
Lumen. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
care
that was
for
season
Lumen.
5. Like I felt like season 5 was the kind of the lull, but come on, it's after season 4, which I feel like the
Yeah,
end season 4 is so perfect
yep,
that like I almost feel I think I told you this years ago. I was like I felt like the writers kind of shot themselves in the foot with the
yep,
ending of season 4 because it's so perfect and so good. Like
yep.
where do you go now? Like how do you top that? Like you know, like I
Apparently,
really
you
like
don't.
you don't.
Apparently, you don't.
You don't. I mean, you have
Yeah,
John Lithgow as the Trinity Killer. It
yeah,
ends in a poetically dark way that makes complete sense
yep.
in an awful way. Like it's just amazing. Like season 4 of Dexter was just phenomenal television writing and just filmmaking and everything.
And the build up to it, the first three seasons
I
before it
know.
were just great.
Yeah,
You
they
know what I
were.
mean? And then it just crescendos at four, and
Dope.
then
Fucking
Dokes,
dope.
yeah, surprise,
Surprise,
motherfucker.
motherfucker.
It's the best.
That's like a meme in and of itself. Never dies. Dokes never dies, bro.
He is so like generically that guy in that show, though. Like, I
Yeah,
don't like you. I don't like the cut
yeah,
of your jib. Like, all right.
exactly. And then, but the thing
Dexter's
is,
like,
I
all right.
thought 5 was a lull, but then I thought 6 was decent. But then I
Was
think
six the one with the Australian gangster dude?
I thought 6 was the one where they have the newer, not the newer, but the one partner that's like the druggie. And then yeah, I think it did have some of the Australian gangster, but it also had that other
Because I liked
killer that
that.
was.
I think it was Ray Winestone who played him. I liked
It
that
might have
season.
been, yeah, that was decent. And then I thought 7, I kind of enjoyed 7 though because like I think that was the introduction of Hannah, wasn't it? Like I thought Hannah was a good
Yeah,
character.
yeah,
Yvonne Strahovski, I think is her name. Like I thought she was a really interesting character, especially the more you found out about her personally. Um, I remember you going, this was just prolonged. She should have found out. The sister should have found out about him earlier." And I was like, "I don't know though, because I was fine with her not finding out, and then I kind of liked the way she found out, like coming in, and
yeah.
then she's just like, and that's like the end of the season. You have to wait a whole freaking
That
six
was
months or whatever.
rough.
I was like, oh,
I wish, do you know what I love that shows do now that they didn't
what,
do during this time
What?
is episode 9 tends to be a grand finale, and then 10 is a wrap up. And I feel
Yeah,
like there are
yeah.
so many moments like that one in today's kind of like series format would have been an episode 9. But like to make an audience wait 6 months after that, I'm like, you son of a bitch.
But the thing is, though, I'm honestly, it's brilliant. Like
Yeah.
because they are just itching. I would do that. I'm sorry, because like they're
Yep.
just itching to know what's about to freaking happen, and you have
Yep.
to wait, which means I'm sure the premiere. I bet you, if you looked at that premiere episode numbers, I bet you they were through the roof. Like I bet you
Oh, I'm
they were.
sure. I'm sure.
I don't hate it. Like it's smart. I think it's great. I think it's great if you have a good show. It sucks if you have a mediocre show and you do it to people. But if you have a great show and something's worth waiting for, do it. Do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Don't listen to Fortune, everybody. Don't do it. Listen to me. Finish your story. Finish your season.
Well, because it did
Finish your
have a
goddamn
complete
season.
season. It wasn't like it ended without the season arc ending, so it still felt like a complete season. It was just this added thing at the very end, and it's like, and then that's the end. It's
I don't
like
like feeling manipulated.
that was one of those times when it happened. I remember literally going, well done, well
Yeah.
done. Like I can't wait till next season already, and I have to wait. I hate you, but well done. Like well
Yep.
done. Like,
Yep.
that's kind of
So I chose Hereditary, the
yes.
Tony Collette show.
Hmm.
And like I said, we saw this together in 2018, and I walked out, and
Yeah.
I'd never heard of Ari Aster. I
Neither
just
had
saw the
I.
trailers, and A24 was doing some really cool things. I think it was shortly after The Witch came out, and I was like,
Hmm.
this looks like a really cool follow up. Let's see it.
Yeah.
Um, and it totally blew me away. Like, as far as kind of an exorcism witchcraft movie, I haven't seen a movie this good, or I imagine will be this influential to the genre since Rosemary's Baby, which this
Which
movie
it which
borrows
which
a
it
lot.
which it's heavily inspired by.
It
I'm
is
pretty
heavily
sure.
inspired by Rosemary's Baby. It goes a different direction with it,
For
and
sure.
this
For
one
sure.
a little more on the nose and a little more kind of magical and horrifying throughout.
Yeah. For sure.
There is that paranoia piece that Rosemary's Baby is known for, and like that bit of gaslighting for sure. But this one
Also,
definitely feels more on the nose in the witchcraft and the haunting.
yes. Also, I'd have to say Ari Aster likes cults. Like that's what I'll
Yeah,
say. He
yeah,
really likes cults. He
yeah.
really
He
does, especially
does,
after seeing Midsommar too.
which is
But
also
yeah,
just awesome.
oh, dude, so good.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies where if you're paying close attention, I feel like you see everything coming and it doesn't ruin anything. Like it's
Uh huh.
wonderful. Like
Uh
it's
huh.
just wonderful because you're like, oh no, this is too happy. Like I know where this is
Oh my
going.
gosh.
This is not good, and it
Yeah.
just keeps descending into this awful. You feel so bad for her. Uh,
Yep.
yeah, it's just yeah. But like Hereditary, I was super stoked because it's one of the few times where I thought the trailer was really clever. It didn't seem like a shitty horror movie trailer. Like the trailer was really really well thought out, and because of the shot list that I saw in the trailer, and then the fact that I'd never heard of this writer director, but the trailer looks beautiful for a horror movie. I was like, that looks
Yeah.
really creative. And then Toni Collette, who I loved, seeing her in a horror movie, I'm like, I have to see this, right? Like, let's do
Hasn't
it.
been since like Sixth Sense, which was another
Yeah,
amazing performance by her.
yeah, it was amazing performance, but she's still not like the lead in that one. I feel like in this one, it like she's kind of like the lead. Well, her and well, yeah, she's the lead
Yeah,
until
yeah.
she's not.
Her and her son. Her
Yeah,
and her
her and
son.
her son.
Um,
Alex Wolf, I think is his name. Is that his name?
yeah, who is
He's great
just
too.
amazing at childlike fear in his acting
For
abilities.
sure.
Like he's
I
the
think he's
king of
great.
it.
I think he's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's really really good.
I will say this movie has one of my favorite. It's up there with Wreck as when I think of unnerving endings from kind of the point where things fall apart to
For
where
sure.
like a main possession happens after an incredible scene. I mean, it's been out for a few years. There's the scene where, Toni Collette finally puts together what's going on, and she's in hysterics because she's like, what the fuck? Like, there's a witch trying to possess my son, and it had to do with my mother, who was always abusive in the first place, and she's freaking out. And on top of that, like her family's already like removing from her because she's trying to get over the trauma of losing a daughter very suddenly and very violently. And she's losing her goddamn mind, but she finally
She
puts it
is.
together what's going on, and she has this book of spells, and she's like begging her husband to believe her, and she's like, if you throw this book in the fire, like I'll die. Like I understand, but I need to protect my family. I know what's going on. And he's like, you need to be in a home. Like, what are
You
you
need to
doing
be
right now?
hospitalized. You need
Yeah,
help.
exactly. Get away from
Yeah,
me.
that's Gabriel
Um,
Byrne, by the way, who I also love.
yeah, and there's the scene which is a great kind of subversion of expectations where
Yeah,
he doesn't believe her, like he loves her, and it's really heartbreaking. He says, "I can't do this anymore," and she says, "Fuck it," and she throws the book in the fire herself, and she doesn't ignite. Her husband does, and
yeah,
it's like this moment of like it's her lowest point. She's just absolutely devastated, and that's the point where the spirit can kind of take hold of her. And from that point on, the movie is fucking crazy, like fucking
yeah,
crazy. I remember
yeah,
it cuts. The movie has this like dollhouse filter where
yeah.
the Tony Collette's characters, her career is building miniatures, and
Mhm,
the camera work is similar. It's almost like we're viewing people in a dollhouse,
mhm.
and it takes this exterior shot of the house after that moment, and it's an immediate frame cut from day to night. And if you look closely in the night in the trees, you'll see all the cultists surrounding the house. It's
Yeah,
really subtle,
it's really
but
cool.
yeah, the rest is just absolutely horrific. I don't want to say more than that for anything that's going on, but
It's been out. I mean, so you can say whatever you want, brother. At this point, I'd say.
I think I've said enough. People are crawling on the
Okay.
ceiling, people are getting decapitated. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
getting decapitated is a good way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to give
Yeah,
away too much of the imagery,
yeah,
but it's horrific. The scene where
it is.
she's hanging from the ceiling with the wire,
Yes,
staring
yeah.
down at the sun, and it doesn't
It's
stick
so.
with her. It sticks with the
Oh,
sound. You know what
it's
I
so
mean?
creepy. Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
creepy. It's really. Oh, it's so creepy. Because like at that point, like no one is in control of themselves anymore. Like you're just, and at that point that must suck for the son, because if you think about how terrified and now how alone he must feel, because like you're
yeah,
watching certain things happen that wouldn't be happening if someone was still there, is what I'll just say, right? Like it's like,
yeah.
ugh, yeah,
The scene that always makes me laugh though is as this cult is tormenting the son, one of the main cultists arrives at his school and is shouting at him from across the street as he's like sitting at lunch depressed. And she's like,
yeah.
get out of your own body. And he's like, what? And I was like, that's the most fucked up thing I've ever seen.
I know. And the funny thing is, by the end, you kind of get it, but
Yeah.
it's just so odd when you see it.
Yeah.
You're like, what is happening
He's
right
looking
now?
at her like, who are you yelling at me? And she's
You're
like, get
like,
out of there.
mom's made friends with a shroom lady. Like that's what's happened. Like
Yeah.
she's on some stuff. Like that's what you're assuming. You're like, she's high as fuck.
Yep.
Like,
High as fuck. But
uh,
yeah, that was my pick.
no, it's a great pick.
It's the
I
bomb.
think it's fantastic, honestly. But I mean, we can't do this without talking about slashers, right? Like, some of our favorite slashers. So,
Hell yeah.
what was your choice of slasher to have me watch?
I chose the 1974 original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes, because
Um,
he knew that it was a film I was actually on my list to watch. I've seen so many scenes from it that I feel like I've seen a lot of it, but I've never
yep,
watched the whole movie. And I had seen the remake, but I had seen it years ago. So I actually rewatched it again recently after watching the new one,
it's
which
not
is
bad,
also
right?
which it's actually not bad. I don't think the
Yeah,
remake was. I don't think it was great, but I don't think it was bad either. It was okay. Like
yeah,
considering all the other remakes that were so bad, it was all right. Like
yeah.
the
Um,
original was much better, but like in a lot of ways. But like I
the
felt like
remake had Arlie Emery though.
it did, and it also had a great ending for Arlie Emery that was well
Yeah,
deserved. That was well deserved. I like
it
that she
did.
didn't just get away; she actually makes a decision to back up. Like I was
Yeah,
like, yes, yes,
yeah,
because I like that stuff. I like when a character just takes power and it's like, fuck this shit. Like before I leave, like it's like,
yeah.
yeah, that was good. So I mean, I didn't hate it like I thought I was gonna. But that's the other thing I forgot to mention. After I saw Halloween Kills, just to decide how bad it was, I actually went back and I probably spent $40 on Prime, because I
Yeah.
watched like all the Halloween movies except for three for right now, just to except for Rob Zombies, because I've seen those like 5 6 years ago. But like I watched all the
Hmm.
other classic ones through Halloween six,
Yeah.
except for HBO because I've H2O because I've seen that one quite a few times. Uh, yeah, so it was fun doing that. But anyway, but yeah, Texas Chainsaw
Hmm.
Massacre was really really cool. I actually feel like the director, for what it was actually a lot more well directed than I expected.
Yeah.
Because of the era, I kind of thought it was going to be one of those movies that was just like cool for its time, but when you go back and watch it, it just seems dated and stuff. And in a lot
Hmm.
of ways, it doesn't. I feel like Tobe Hooper did a good job. The cinematography is actually really good.
Hmm.
It's really nice in some scenes. It's really pretty. Um, and his choice of not using a score in quite a few scenes was really interesting because like it
Yeah.
just makes that revving of the chainsaw and the screams and the footprints as people run through floors, it makes it really it just makes it feel really, well, I guess again, visceral. I hate saying using that word so much lately, but it's a very visceral film in the sense that there's so much that there's no score. Like even the
Yeah.
first kill, there's no score. It like there's almost no score throughout the whole movie. It really makes it feel odd because it's cinematic, but it also makes it feel more real, which I think also lends to the kind of lie at the beginning of the film that it's based off of a true story, because it's not really.
Right.
It's partially built based off of Ed Gein, but not really. It's a completely fictitious story, but that was
Yeah.
part of the cool marketing of that. It was this real thing. But I think the fact that there's no score and stuff, it kind of adds to it. It almost in
Yeah.
some scenes it feels almost documentary-esque, but not really. Again, like it's really interesting. So thought it was
Yeah.
cool movie.
Awesome. I'm happy you enjoyed. My two favorite parts, the scenes that always stuck with me, was you mentioned it, the first kill.
Yeah,
As the man walks into the farmhouse when they're trying to find someone there, and there's the open door, and it's bright
yeah,
red, and there's like animal skulls hanging, and
yeah.
it's like it's
Bright red.
unnerving, but it's not like it literally is a red flag, but it can be seen
Yeah.
why it's not taken as a red flag. You know what I
No,
mean?
I
It's just
wouldn't
kind of
take it as
odd.
one. Yeah,
But as he walks in, and it's so sudden, he trips over a floorboard. And as he trips over the floorboard, it cuts back. And as he stands up, Leatherface, the big, like 6'8" guy wearing a mask of skin, is in front of him. And he just hits him hard in the head with a meat hammer. And
yeah.
it cuts to his boots clicking on the floor.
Which is
Like,
foreshadowing from earlier, because they're talking about slaughterhouses, and they
right.
talk about how when they hit the animals, a lot of times they're not dead, like they're dead, but their brain's still not registering, so they're shaking, and they have to hit them again. Like
Yep.
like like it's literally like foreshadowed. Which is it just me, or does it seem like the slaughterhouse and the meat industry is a huge like
Huge thing.
subtext within this film, like almost
Absolutely.
like, because like people are essentially just treated like the way we treat animals, and it seems very
Exactly.
deliberate, like
That's exactly right.
like it's one of this like most horrifying movies ever, but really all the film is exactly the way we treat animals in slaughterhouses, but it's horrifying when it's done to us.
Yep.
So why isn't it as horrifying when we do it to animals? It seems like it's the point, which it's a good point,
Hmm.
because I mean we could make their deaths a bit more humane, but I mean technically that's literally all he's doing. He's treating them like meat because that's what they are to him.
Yep.
So I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, it's very interesting.
Um, good call. Um, and then the last scene that I love is the very end, which has become it's become iconic.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the kind of quote last girl played by Marilyn Burns as she's escaping from Leatherface. She's running and he's chasing her with a chainsaw, and she tries to get in this truck, but it doesn't work out, and
yeah.
the trucker
Never,
runs
never
away.
find out. Never find out what happens to the trucker. He ran the other way.
Right? He was like, "Peace." I'm like, I'm fucking out of here, dude. Um, But she gets in the truck at the last moment. Leatherface is spinning into the sunset, which is a great shot, but that's not the great part. The great part
Her
is her
performance.
scream. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like as she's screaming, like the relief and terror
yeah,
and anxiety and all
yeah.
of
Because
those things at the same time.
she's like terrified. She's almost in shock, but she's laughing as she
Yeah,
screams too. Like because she got away, but she's like, it's like she's feeling terror and relief and shock all at the same time, right? Like,
yeah,
and
yeah. She crushes it. Um,
yeah, she does a great job. Yeah,
and I'm happy you brought up the remake because I also thought that it was pretty good. I mean, it's in no way the original. I could see why people were upset about it. But the two that stood out to me during that era of being like solid remakes slash reboots was I really liked that one, and I really liked Friday the 13th. Like that, I
yeah.
think it came out
See,
around 2009 with like Jared
yeah.
Padalecki and a few other actors. I thought that was pretty good too.
Ye- Yeah, I gotta be honest, I wasn't as into that one, but like,
Fair enough.
but like, I could totally understand how Jason fans would like that one for sure. Like,
Yeah,
it's probably one of the better ones in that series for sure.
yeah,
For me, it just suffered again from. I don't like it when you just make a lot of characters stupid for the sake of script, and I feel like that just happened a lot in that movie, so it kind of drove me nuts. So that, but it was definitely better made than a lot of the other Friday the 13th movies for sure.
yep,
Like, I'm actually shocked that one didn't get a sequel because it made a ton of money and it was really well received by people that love Friday the 13th actually. So like it
yeah.
was one of those ones I was shocked there weren't more sequels. Like there were all these Leatherface sequels and Like I just don't get it because like it made a lot of money. So maybe there was a copyright issue or something. Because yeah, I don't get that one. I thought they were gonna make a lot of them.
I don't get it either. As far as like the teen slasher genre, I thought like it felt like refreshing and it was like a cool version of Jason. But you're right,
Hmm.
it didn't really go anywhere after that. I thought it was pretty
Yeah,
good though.
yeah.
So you chose another all-time classic. What'd you choose?
Scream, of course,
Of
because
course.
I can't help it though. Like that film, that the Scream series, especially the first two. Like I have to admit, the third one has some great elements and it has some meh, and I'd have to say the same thing about the fourth. But the
Hmm.
first two are just so freaking good to me, and also like till this day, the opening scene in Scream One is one of my favorite scenes in film history. Like it's just so good. At the time, it was so creative, and I feel like a lot of people, if you watch Scream now, you're like, yeah, it was good, but but it's like I feel like you have to remember the time. Like when that came out, just think about one thing. Like for instance, cell phones were not a thing like they are now. Okay,
Yeah.
so when that movie came out, the idea that he had a cell phone was a big deal. Like around that time, the only people that kind of had cell phones in like the mid to early 90s were like what cops and drug dealers, pretty
Right.
much.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
you could ask someone, "Are you a cop?" Nope. I know what he does.
Interesting. Right.
Like
Interesting.
so it came out around like 96 or something. So it's like, and this was in like kind of an affluent area of California supposedly, because if you just saw the houses that the people lived in, they're upper middle class. So like you're at this high school and like all these kids are starting to have cell phones, right? So the idea that someone could be calling you and like you feel safe because they have to be at least a ways away from wherever they're calling you. The fact that they could be calling you and they're right outside your house, that was such a new concept. Like that was such a new concept.
My
It
boyfriend
was
will be here. He plays football and he's gonna kick your
kick the shit
ass.
out of you.
Yeah.
Something I'd probably try to say too once I realize things are not going the way I expected.
Right.
And another cool thing about that is that opening kill for Drew Barrymore. Some of you might not know this, but in the original posters, even one of the original Screen posters, she's the face on the cover, and it's
Yeah.
because when they sent her the script, they expected her to be Sydney because she was the famous person in that movie. The
Hmm.
rest of the people were pretty well unknowns. Like her and Matthew Lillard were the two like well-known people. Um, and so she was basically going to be Sydney. That's what they sent it to her, and she was the one who had the idea where she was like, "That's really cool, but I want to do something a little different. What if I play Casey?" And they're like, well, no, she dies in the beginning. And she's like, I know, wouldn't it be so great? Like, nobody would
Right.
expect that, right? And it was brilliant because if you think about it, it's almost like an homage to Wes Craven, the
Psycho.
director. It's like an homage to Psycho. It's also like an homage to Nightmare on Elm Street. Because in Nightmare on Elm Street,
All right.
you follow what is it, Kristen, or I think it's
Uh-huh.
Kristen, right? For like the first 15 minutes of the movie before she dies. And you're like, wait, what just happened? Like, I thought
Yeah.
she was the lead, like it's like an homage to those classic, really great movies where you don't automatically know who their survivors are like you do in movies. Now it's like it starts with someone, okay, so they're probably going to live,
Right. Right.
so it really throws you off guard because she's on all the posters. Imagine that back then. She's on all the posters. She was also this childhood star. This is like her first adult movie kind of at 17, and she's basically kind of like America's sweetheart because she's the child star. She's on the poster, and then the opening scene is this horrific, beautifully directed and acted by Drew Barrymore scene where she gets murdered brutally and you're just like, what is happening? You know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
so clever, it was so cool, and the writing was so good. Like, oh, that scene's written so well. Like he chokes her, she gets away, she calls for help, they can't hear her because he choked her, so she's right there, her parents are right there and they can't help her, and then she's getting stabbed to death literally 5 feet from them on the other side of the wall. They pick up the phone to call 911. She still has the phone, so now they're hearing it. Like there's just so much like dark twisted poetry in that writing. It is just so smart and so clever. I
Yeah.
just, the opening scene in Scream is one of my probably top 5 favorite scenes in any movie ever, and I love the sequence. To this day I love Ghostface. I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but I am excited. I hope the new Scream movie's good because it's the first time we're not seeing it in Wes Craven's
Yeah.
hands. It's actually the two directors that directed Run, Ready or Not, which was actually kind of a fun comedy horror. So they might be, decent at writing and stuff. So far, it seems like the trailer was interesting, but from what I'm told, the trailer was really really hard for them to do because the way the film's written, apparently, the only way to show the most interesting scenes that make it look cool would totally give away things about the movie. So apparently,
Yep.
this is like the best cut they could get without revealing things. So that makes it's interesting. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a theory that like Dewey's gonna die for real this time, but like I could be wrong because he dies in Scream One, and then at the end He's still alive, which wasn't originally the plan. They saved him. And then in Scream
Yeah.
2, in my opinion, he has like the most dramatic death scene, which is fantastic. Probably the best scene in that movie, or one of them. And then he ends up being alive at the end. So I'm like, is he really gonna die this time? I don't know.
We'll keep it
Because
as a running joke.
yeah, it's like no, this time we really killed him to show that it's
Yeah.
like a new era with new directors. I mean, I don't know, but like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
What did you think of Scream? Because I could go on for hours about this. So please.
Oh man, I love Scream. Well, we've talked about this a little bit before. When I think of like the king of horror and who's kind of done the most consistently for the genre, I think of Wes Craven. Like
For sure.
he
Yeah,
made The
he's
Last
great.
House on the Left. He made
Oh yeah.
The Hills Have Eyes. He made Nightmare
Nightmare
on
on
Elm
Elm
Street.
Street. Oh,
And
so
this was
good.
the era, he made New Nightmare, which came out a couple years before Scream. Then he made
Yes.
Scream, and he just had this huge kind of moment of like subverting the entire genre because he'd been
Hmm.
crushing it for so long.
He
And
did.
yeah, I love Scream too. When I go back and watch it, it reminds me like I think like the most modern kind of version of this genre would be something like Cabin in the Woods, where like
Probably.
leaned a little more into the surreal and comedy aspects. But
And like the meta version of itself, where it kind of mocks its own genre within itself. But Kevin
yeah,
Williamson, if I'm correct, he started that though. Like that's another thing
oh
people
yeah,
don't need. Another people need to realize. Like before Scream, I don't think there was anything that was like self-referential horror thing. He did that. That's why
yeah,
he also came in and he wrote. It wasn't his idea, but he wrote the screenplay for I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is why he couldn't write Scream 3.
yeah,
And then he also wrote another film that I loved from that era called The Faculty. I love The Faculty.
yeah. The
He wrote
Faculty
that
was awesome.
he wrote that
I
too,
like the
which is
Faculty
actually
too.
similar. In that one, it's a horror sci-fi, and he breaks down the sci-fi genre with his characters throughout the film. That was his thing, like
Yeah,
the whole meta thing. But the whole meta horror thing, like I don't think it really existed before him. Like characters
yeah,
actually talking about the genre within the genre, and it's still scary, but it also manages to be a joke of itself while being taken seriously. Like I mean. It doesn't usually work, but he made it work with Wes Craven, and good actors, really good actors. Like
yep,
almost everybody in Scream, like aside from Matthew Lillard, I think, and Courtney Cox, obviously, and Drew Barrymore. I think a lot of this launched their careers. Like David Arquette actually already had a career too, but like a
yeah.
lot of those younger people, this like launched their career. Nev Campbell, Rose McGowan, like
Mhm.
Skeet Ulrich, like all these people were just great, like really great casting too.
Yeah, and I think the chase scenes in Scream are like kind of used as like the meme chases now, where it's like somebody like running and like sometimes it doesn't seem like they're really trying to get away. They're like throwing things behind them, but in the movie it's really engaging. Like seeing Ghostface
It
like trip
is,
over a lamp and like get something busted over his head, and like
yeah, and
if he
that's another
catches
thing I
him, he's
like.
gonna kill the shit out of him.
Yeah, and that's another thing I like about Ghostface. I think what makes him scary is he's fast, but he's wild. Like he
Yeah,
still feels human. Like he'll still get like the kind of, he'll get bashed in the face. Like I remember in Scream 2 when like the stuntman's running after when he's like, "Hello, Sydney, remember me?" And he's like,
mhm.
and she's like, "Well, then why don't you show your face, you fucking coward?" And she turns around, he's like, "My pleasure." And when he chases her through the room, he literally trips over a rocking chair, and that's how she gets
Right,
away. I was
right.
like, I was like,
He's very
oh,
clumsy.
even though that was a stuntman, that looked like that hurt. Like
Yeah,
I was
it does look like her.
like, it does.
The other scene that I really love, other than the intro, is I love after the reveal of like Billy and Stuart that they were
Oh
working together.
yeah.
The scenes where they're stabbing each other to make
Oh,
it
it's
look
so
like it was.
great.
It's so good.
And the
And
scene where he
Matthew
hits him
Lillard,
with the
like,
phone, that was an accident too, by the
oh,
way.
was it really?
It's one of the best takes. It's legendary, and it was an accident because they did the take so many times, and in that take, he accidentally hit him in the phone. So it was improv when he's like, "You hit me with the phone, dick."
Yeah.
It was all improv. Like it was great.
Matthew Lillard, like
He's so,
overacting his ass
he's
off in that
so
movie, is my
good.
favorite thing.
Dude,
Like, it's
everybody
so fun
loves
to
Matthew
see.
Lillard. People are
Yeah.
like, no, you can still bring Matthew Lillard back. Like a TV wouldn't kill someone. People are like, he's gonna be the
Right.
killer in the new Scream. He was in jail for
Please.
25 years and then he gets out. It's
Please.
like
I beg
they're
you.
like, because he was a minor, so he'd get like 25 years, right?
Yep.
Like that's what people are
I
saying. Even
beg
Matthew
you.
Lillard was like, I will come back if they let me. He's like, I will. I was watching an interview recently. He was like, dude, you don't die from a TV being thrown on you. He's like, in this interview, it's a live stream. I'll do it right now. I'll throw a TV on me right now. He was like,
He's awesome.
he's so great,
And
bro.
he's my favorite part of the movie too.
He's so good. Yeah, he's
Uh,
fantastic.
yeah, I agree. So I loved it. I was really happy you chose it because it was like, yay, an excuse to watch Scream. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have the whole Blu-ray box set, and then on DVD I have like the special Scream Edition trilogy set or whatever with all the director's commentary and special features. Like I have it all.
Yeah, yeah. Um, God, the slasher genre is so good. Oh, you know what else we have to see that I think comes out this weekend? Not slasher, but Last Night in Soho.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Edgar
yeah,
Wright's
yeah.
new
Edgar
movie.
Wright's new
Yeah,
movie. Yes, I am totally down to see that. I love
yeah,
Edgar Wright, so I'm down. So
cool.
guys, just we're gonna continue with the podcast right now, but I just want to let you know our next podcast will probably discuss that. I would assume
Hmm.
since it's coming out now, so expect
Yeah,
that. Okay, so ghost stories.
hell yeah. So, I chose a movie that I love, but I've actually only seen it twice, and it was years ago, and I didn't have a chance to rewatch it, unfortunately. So, I'm gonna let
I
you
liked it.
kind of tell me a little bit about your thoughts. But I chose
Yeah.
Devil's Backbone. It was one of Guillermo
Yes.
del Toro's very early movies, and it's about
Yes.
a young orphan whose family dies in the Spanish Civil War.
Yes.
And it's a ghost story within an orphanage.
Yes. Which I was actually really happy you recommend this because I love Guillermo del Toro as much as you do, and it's been on my list for years. I've just never remembered to watch it. So
Mm-hmm.
it was really cool to actually see it. Yes, it does takes place in the middle of the Spanish Civil War. He's essentially dropped off at an orphanage by somebody who is um I can't remember if the guy was trying to go fight in the world or if he was trying to essentially sneak things through on the war. I didn't quite get some of that, but he's dropped off there with this group of kids, and um, it starts with this kind of bomb falling in the middle of the school earlier in the war, but it turns out to be a dud, luckily for them, right?
Yeah,
And it kind of starts with like a scene of a boy bleeding out on the ground. You don't really know what happens. You find out later that this boy died there recently, or if I'm correct, no, he went missing. He went missing there.
mhm,
And there's this like certain people have claimed that they've seen him around the school. It seems like a few people, and you kind of think it's kind of like like a joke. It's just like a spooky story people tell or what have you. But this kid, fairly early on when he arrives, starts seeing some things. And what's interesting about this film is it doesn't really take it from the perspective of just seeing it as the kid. It almost shows you the ghost POV sometimes. Like you see
right.
this ghost watching him before he even realizes what's really happening.
Hmm.
Um, and essentially, it introduces you to a few characters within the film. And you kind of already know there's one character that I wouldn't say in the beginning you assume he's bad, but you feel like he's kind of an edgier character that you're not really sure about. I'll just say that.
Right.
And then there's an interesting dynamic between the woman who runs the orphanage and the man who kind of runs it with her. It almost seems like he's kind of always been in love with her,
Yeah.
but she's kind of living her life, and it's like she's aware, but it's not. It doesn't seem like it's really a thing for sure. Uh, and then the twist is that she's one of the kids who's grown up in the orphanage, who's older now, who helps out around the orphanage, who's one of these characters I was telling you about. She's sleeping with him.
Right.
um and and I feel like that automatically makes you feel a little different about her, because nothing about her makes her seem like a bad person per se, but I feel like that kind of probably rubs most people the wrong way. My first thought was interesting. I
Right.
was like, huh,
Hmm.
okay, so where's this gonna go? But essentially it ends up being a situation of a human greed in the midst of an orphanage. And I think the thing that leads to this kind of tragedy is because the orphanage it's in the Civil War, so it's separated from town. Like without a car or something, it's literally like a 12-hour walk, right? Like
Yep.
it's far away. So if there's no transportation or anything, you're kind of left out there to your own devices, unfortunately.
Hmm.
And essentially, the ghost kind of appears throughout the film, and there is some kind of creepy moments, but ultimately, it kind of, to me, a film that came out more recently, I think it came out around 2007 or something, that I loved, that mirrors not this movie completely, but some themes of this film, is called El Orfanato, The Orphanage.
I've seen it.
I,
Yep.
I love that movie.
Uh-huh.
It's another film in the sense where the I don't really find it to be a ghost story that's scary. It's more just like intriguing. You're trying to figure out what's going on, like what does the ghost want? And as things progress, I think you start to wonder, is the ghost even like a bad ghost? Like you're trying to
Hmm.
figure out like what's going on, and it kind of ends up being a situation where the ghost is essentially, oh, you okay? It's
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
sorry.
Where the ghost is essentially after something that's very warranted, is what I'll say.
Yep.
And I'll just say that it's older now. We can spoil it, but essentially there is a safe that has gold bars in it, and it's
Hmm.
kind of like this group's last. something they can use for money when they need to. What I like is that the name of the movie is called The Devil's Backbone, and this guy has uh, babies that are born almost like it's like something that happens. I don't remember if it was a genetic thing or if it was like through starvation or whatever, but like their bone gets kind of exposed or what have you. And he
Yep.
has these babies in jars of water, and it's almost like making a tea out of them. It's really disturbing and gross. But he sells this water in town, and he lies and says it's a miracle, whatever. And he's ripping people off, and that's how they make most of their money for the orphanage.
Yep.
So it's like this lie funds this orphanage. So it's almost like a question of, is it okay to lie if you're saving a bunch of kids and it's not, well, it probably isn't hurting anybody, but who knows? Like I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
So but what I love about it is the name of the film is a really interesting name, considering the fact that maybe not necessarily the spine thing, but the boy who goes missing turns out to have been murdered by somebody, and
Mhm.
the water source that is in the basement, he's essentially, that's where the body was dumped.
Yep.
So essentially at the base of this facility, there's like this really unknown brew of devil's backbone kind of brewing where this
Yep.
kid's murdered body is. And then essentially by the end of the film, there are two bodies there, is all I'll say. But
Mhm.
it's an interesting title for the film because it seemed like the scene is kind of insignificant. It's like, oh, it just shows you how you make the money, but that's the only point of the scene. So why'd you call it the Devil's Backbone? Then you get to the end and you're like,
You're
it's
like,
like
ah.
it's kind of a funny name, honestly, like
Yeah.
considering what happens. But it's a good movie. I think that the boys actually played their parts really well considering they were kids. Because like I
Yep.
feel like a lot of times in movies the kids are the worst part, even if they try, because they're just not as experienced. But they all did a pretty good job. Like I actually thought it was a good movie. I liked it. So thank you for recommending
Awesome.
it.
Yeah, I'm happy you liked it. Guillermo del Toro's movies always have kind of a fairy tale romantic quality about them,
For
and this
sure.
one's no exception. It's not the scariest movie, but the fantastical elements are treated with this kind of mystique and this romance to it, and
Yeah.
this mystery that he kind of perfected in Pan's Labyrinth. I think that's kind of him at the top of his game when
That's
it comes to
one.
creative
Yeah,
freedom. But you
that's
could see
one of my
this
favorite
movie.
movies.
Me too. You could see this movie on the road to that. You know what I mean?
For
And
sure.
that's why I
Yeah,
liked it a lot.
I could definitely say that. I could see that for sure with this film. And I'll say one scene that just made me so mad is because she was just so innocent and so sweet and nice. Is the woman who worked there, the younger woman who was in love with the guy, and
Yeah,
when he kills her, I was so angry. Like I was like so angry.
furious.
Like, and it's like you see it coming, but you're like, don't you fucking do it, you know? And
Yeah,
then it
you're
happens, and
like, you're not allowed.
you're like, okay, I hate you so much now. I hope you get the worst death ever.
Yep, yep. I'm excited for his new project, Nightmare Alley. Did you see the trailer for that?
No. Ooh, I can't wait. I'm gonna have to
Ooh,
check that out though.
it's about a carny starring Bradley Cooper.
Awesome. I
Yeah, it
feel like
looks pretty great.
even if the movie he does is just okay, it's still beautifully shot and it's usually really visually interesting. So even if the story's just okay, I'm usually still in. Like that's kind of how I felt about Crimson Peak. I wish the ghost hadn't been CG the whole
Yeah,
time because the CG kind of wasn't scary at all. But like the
right.
atmosphere and the filming and stuff was gorgeous, you know.
I
So
agree. I agree.
yeah,
I haven't been, I liked The Shape of Water somewhat, but I didn't love it. But I haven't been this excited for one of his projects in forever. From the cast alone, I mentioned like Bradley Cooper's leading, but it's like him, Kate Blanchett, Willem Dafoe, Tony Collette, Ron
oh,
Perlman, like just the list goes on.
wow. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
it looks
super
really good.
excited now. Yeah, actually, I'm shocked. I haven't even heard of this. Now I have something super exciting to watch. I'm gonna watch it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Together.
check it out. There's a trailer.
So
So you chose
the skeleton key.
the old skeleton key.
And
Uh,
I will let you talk about this. I'll just say one thing. It is directed by Ian Softly. It's written by Aaron Kruger, who is actually the writer of the Ring remake in the US, if I'm correct.
oh, I could see that.
But he's also the one that wrote the screenplay for Scream 3 because Kevin Williamson couldn't. So he actually, apparently Kevin Williamson told him some ideas of where he planned on going and then he ended up writing it, which I feel like he's definitely not Kevin Williamson, but either way, like that's who Aaron Kruger is. He's also, I think he's written some of the Transformers movies too, but I'm sure those are
Ew.
big money.
uh, yeah, well, I liked the Skeleton Key a lot, and I hadn't
Me
seen it in
too.
years, so thank you for this pick again. But it's
Sure.
about Kate Hudson plays a woman who's, if I remember correctly, her father died in a way that was really difficult for her. So she goes into hospice care to help people kind of in their final moments. But through her experience in that industry, she sees how people are essentially just disregarded. Like she at one point finds like boxes of belongings in the trash can, and as she's feeling this, lack of respect or care for human life, she realizes that this isn't the work that or the
She
type of work that she wants to do. She still wants to
yeah.
help people, kind of in their twilight years, but not in this way.
Hmm.
So she finds an ad in a paper for in-home hospice care for a family out in like a New Orleans like swamp slash bayou, and she meets with a lawyer who is really convincing on why she should take this job because she's kind of on the fence about it, and she eventually does. And it turns out she's going to be caring for a character John Hurt plays, and I love
Yeah,
John Hurt, and
me too.
he's wheelchair bound, and he's essentially a mute, and he needs completely full care for everything. And as she spends time in this house, she's given a skeleton key, quote, for the movie, that she's given free reign of the entire house. It's like, go wherever you want, take care of him. There's another old woman there who I can't remember who it's played by, but she's like, let me know if you need anything, being really hospitable. And very early on, she finds out there's a door in the attic that the key doesn't open.
Hmm.
And she's like, hey, what's going on with this? And it's you don't want to go down that road. It's like, that's a bad road. Don't go up there. And,
Create
she just,
curiosity. Now because
right,
I'm told I can't go, I want to know.
right, exactly. So through her time in this house, she starts to notice weird things with John Hurt's character, who's I think his name was Ben. And he like makes attempts to speak, and it starts to become really clear that maybe he's being held against his will, that he may need some help, that there may be
Hmm.
something nefarious going on in the background. And she
Hmm.
starts this investigation on what could potentially be the issue with his care in this house.
And can I
And
just say the atmosphere is really cool. Like
yeah,
being in like New Orleans, and it's a very different kind of atmosphere for a horror movie than you're used to seeing. And the
yeah,
culture and everything and how that represents this film and how it is involved is really cool. So, just what I'll say.
yep, yep. I totally agree. I think the setting, the swamp, is probably the best part of the movie, as well as the culture around the magic. It
Hmm.
turns out that there is something nefarious in the background. There's been spells cast through hoodoo, and it's depicted in the movie that the rules of hoodoo are that the spells won't work unless you believe in it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't entirely know what sort of spell has been cast, but through her exploration and her work, she starts to understand that he has been cursed in some way.
Hmm.
So she starts to notice that there's some sort of danger. And there's this really cool scene where she tries to escape, but a spell's put on the gate to where the truck can't get through, and there's
Yeah.
all this flooding, and she has to escape by boat.
It's so
Um,
cool. It's
yeah,
great.
there's it's a really cool scene.
Yeah.
And then it's from this moment you know exactly who the evil person is, because she runs back to the lawyer who convinced her to take
I
the
love.
job, and you're like, that's convenient, like that you would run
Yeah.
back to that person, like nobody
Yeah.
else, for real, you go back to the lawyer. um
I also love the scene with the salt, and then she's like, "Oh, could you just
yeah,
grab it for me?" It's like such a great scene. I love that
yeah.
scene.
The scene where they're chasing her, and it wasn't red, was it red salt, what was it that she was sprinkling?
Yeah,
um
it was a kind of salt, is all I remember. Like it's been a minute since I've seen it too.
yeah,
Was
it
it red
turns
salt?
out,
Could
yeah,
have
I
been.
remember it was red. And there's this awesome scene. You find out that the lawyer, as well as the old woman
That lives in the house with him.
that lives in the house with John Hurt's character, um, they're essentially, they used to work amongst the grounds of the
Hmm.
house, and they found a way through this magic to transfer their bodies into other bodies. And John Hurt was the previous kind of capsule of the man who has been transferred to the lawyer Luke, and they're trying to get a new body for the old woman, and that's
Which it turns out is why Kate Hudson's character is there. Like
yeah,
he was looking for a young woman to come into the house specifically, and that was the ploy the whole time. Right?
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So now once you realize all this, also something that I didn't mention earlier that's really cool, when Kate Hudson's character gets to the house, all the mirrors have been removed,
All of them.
and
Yeah, yeah,
all of
yeah.
them, yeah. And there's a scene where she brings in a mirror, and the old woman freaks the fuck out. She's like,
Yeah,
"Ah!"
yeah. It's great.
um, and you
I,
realize why. I can't remember the ghost's name, but they were like groundskeepers for the house, and
mhm,
they had this plan to take over the children of the family that
mhm,
were their masters and their owners, and they execute this spell and transfer themselves into the children's bodies,
mhm.
and the children are transferred into their bodies, and then
I,
unknowingly,
I I think it's isn't it Papa Justify and Mama Cecile?
that's right, Papa Justify and Mama Cecile.
Yeah,
Yep.
those are the spirits if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the bodies of Papa Justify and Mama Cecile are hung
Mhm.
until they're dead, which were actually
Awful.
the souls of the children.
Of the
You know?
children. I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but like ironically, that's kind of an awesomely awful scene in a way. It's like
Yeah.
due to
Yeah.
bigotry and hatred and like how certain people were treated back then, you tried to hang them and they essentially swapped with your children and you hung your own kids.
Hmm.
It's crazy. Like the thought of that is just such a clever idea for a story too. Like it's just wow. I
Yep.
remember being really like shocked when I found that. Like I was like, okay, this is an ending I never would have seen coming, and it's actually really clever. It's not stupid. Like it's actually
Yeah.
really cool.
It was super clever, and the setting on top of that makes it even more special. There is,
Yeah.
it's such a fucked up ending because
It
as Carolyn K. Hudson's character is
is.
running from Luke and the old woman, she's like, since they're cursed in a way, they can't pass salt lines. So
Mhm.
she's like tracing salt around these areas and gets in a fight with the old lady. And if I remember, she throws her down the stairs, and the old lady breaks her legs, and
It
you're
was
like, oh
something like
shit.
there's
Yeah,
something like that. You're like, damn.
yeah. And then it turns out through all of the events and all of the salt she's been pouring in these spell circles, she's come to believe in this magic over time,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately. And it was all a ruse to be able to get her into this attic that she's been trying to get into the whole movie to
Yeah.
essentially cast a spell on herself to give up her body to Mama Cecile, which is fucked up because that means Kay Hudson's character is now in an old woman's body with broken legs. And you're
Eh,
like,
yep. And
oh,
they're gonna take her to a place and sedate her. And if she tells people no, that's my body, she's gonna look like someone with dementia or signs of Alzheimer's, and she is screwed. There's nothing she's
mhm.
gonna be able to do about it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
there's nothing. So, oh, what were you going to say?
no, I was just saying. I'm pretty sure I know where you were going with the fucked up part with the salt, right? Like, because that's that's really
Yeah,
cool. That's a cool
yeah,
ending. Yeah.
yeah. It was a really cool ending, and the scene where the mirror comes into play and it's kind of thrown at her.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a really
but
great scene. So
yeah, in a lot of ways, the this kind of feels like a precursor to Get Out, which I
kind
thought
of
was
no.
pretty cool. You
Yes,
know?
yes. Like if you want
Yeah.
the truth, when I saw Get Out, I really liked Get Out, but to me, like it wasn't as original as some people thought. Like to me, just
Mhm.
and I didn't mean it wasn't. I liked it, but I mean
Yeah.
because I had seen this movie and I've always liked this movie. Like
Yeah.
my first thought was it has some elements of that too. Like
Yeah.
like so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that was kind of cool. I would be surprised if Jordan Peele wasn't inspired by the Skeleton Key
me too.
because
Me too.
for some reason I remember this movie like getting a lot of talk when it came out, but it kind of fell out of the
Yeah,
conversation of horror movies. But it is really unique and it is really good.
and I think
You
it's
know?
pretty well made. Like I mean,
Yeah.
from what I remember, like it's been a while since I've seen it. But I remember it was put together pretty well, and I liked it. And I remembered that ending just because, like, with the salt, you guys might not know if I remember correctly. What she doesn't think about is the salt keeps them away, but it also, like, it also keeps you in.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so now she
Exactly.
can't leave, and the best part is the magic only works if you believe in it. So there's like this final part of the spell, and she's trying to convince herself that she doesn't believe in it, but just by doing that means that she does. And it's so terrifying because the old she's played by I think it's something Devereaux, and she's
Yeah.
so great because there's a moment where she's like, I don't believe, and she's like, oh, I
Oh,
think
I
you
think you
do, and
do.
it's
Yeah.
so creepy. Oh, and then the mirror
Yeah.
just comes. It's so good. It's one of those films that
Jeez.
actually builds to an ending that delivers. Like I liked it. Like
Mhm.
I really enjoyed the Skeleton Key. Like it's one of those I saw it like once, I never forgot it, and I think I saw it again a few years later, and I was like, still good. Like it's a
What's
good movie.
the only painful part for me is that I love John Hurt delivering dialogue, and he
Me
really
too.
doesn't get to in this
I
movie.
know he doesn't. He has a legendary voice, and he's more just like he acted his butt off though. Like he was
Yeah,
terrified most of the
yeah,
movie
he
for
was.
good
He
reason.
was like, "Oh
For
shit,
good reason.
oh
He's
shit."
like he's like you can tell in his eyes. He's like, get out while you
Right,
can.
right. And
uh,
she does not. So yeah,
she
good
does not.
choice. That movie is really fucking cool, and
It's a
I
good
kind of
movie.
forgot about it myself.
Yeah, it's one that like I've only seen a couple times over the 15 years or 10 years or whatever since it's been out, but I never forgot it because I thought it was actually really cool. It was creative and it delivered. Like I've seen many movies that are really good at building and then the ending's just kind of a letdown, and that one did not let me down. So I
Yeah.
liked it. Okay,
Uh,
so
Agreed.
some of the movies we both our last picks are movies that we decided to pick films that are some of our favorites. Not
Hmm.
necessarily our favorite, but one of our favorites because this was really hard for us because we like so many horror movies. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
chose A Nightmare on Elm Street, and what did you choose?
I chose Black Swan, which for some
Which is
reason I've
so
had to
good.
defend over the years as a horror movie,
No,
but
it's a psychological
it's a
horror for
hell of a
sure,
horror movie.
and that's one of my favorite movies of all time as well. So like, great pick. I can't fault you at all. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and good call to Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
That's my fiance's favorite too. We own the box set of all the movies, and we'll kind of go through
yeah,
them every now and then, which is
yeah.
kind of a mixed bag. But the
It
first one
is.
is always
I feel like
so
this.
good.
I feel like the second one's a little underrated. Like it's not great, but it's
I
not
agree. I
awful.
agree.
Like I felt like it has some moments that are legitimately terrifying. Like
I think
it's
Freddy
weird.
Krueger is at his cruelest in that movie. That
He
one and
is.
New Nightmare, he's really
Yeah.
cruel.
Dude,
Yeah,
New Nightmare is so good. The first
yeah,
and New Nightmare are the best, and then I think three is a good one that's fun, but it's not scary at all. But it's fun. Like I
it's
like
good.
three. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good
yeah,
movie, but it's not scary, but it's good still. Like
yep,
it's like it was the beginning of him being the kind of funny horror icon
yep.
that he is, but it was still had some grounded reality with bringing back some of the older characters into like a final film for some of them and stuff. So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
so Nightmare on Elm
Um,
Street. Uh, I'm sorry. I'm just like assuming. Who you want to go first? Go ahead. Go first. Go first.
yeah, no, let's talk Nightmare on Elm Street. Man, I love this movie. One of my favorite visuals in horror movies ever is always the scene with the clear body bag in the school with the white
Dude,
flooring and the blood that
yes.
drags itself.
Me
I
too.
adore that
Me
image.
too. It's so
Um,
good. It's so good, and
yeah,
I love that it's a perspective from like the classroom. It's just a still
yeah,
shot. No cool camera tracking. It's just extremely creepy. And till this day, actually, if you want the truth, her murder scene is one of the most iconic scenes
yeah.
ever for me. Like, there's a well, I don't want to say that, but I'll just say it's
What?
inspired some things that I'm currently
Oh, okay.
writing. Like, not
Yeah,
completely, but like certain ideas. I feel like I'm doing something different, and interesting, but they're definitely it's a root inspiration for some things that I'm gonna do in some of my scripts. So like just you're inspired by
very
things. I'll
awesome.
just say that. That scene
Yeah,
till this day is it's like the idea that it's something that's happening and it makes sense and doesn't make sense. It's like I can imagine where
hmm,
he is and what's happening, but she's going up a wall and she's going
right.
it's just the craziest shit ever.
And
It's so
what's
creepy.
crazy is it's done so well. And I
It
remember, the
is.
remake isn't very good, but for some reason, that scene,
No.
there's no reason it shouldn't have been done better in the
No.
remake. But
No.
it's
There's
done
no
way
reason.
better in the original.
Dude, she
It's
just
done
floats
way,
in the remake for some reason. It's
but it's
awful.
clear wire work. She's
And then
like
she starts
swinging.
spinning. It's so bad. Like that remake was
Yeah,
just so bad though. That's just I'm sorry. I don't care if I offend someone. That was just terrible direction, bad writing. That was that Michael.
yeah,
And the weird thing is that was the Michael Blay horror movie thing. They're technically the ones that did Texas Chainsaw, and I think Jason too. It was like Platinum Dunes. But like I
yeah.
thought Texas Chainsaw was not
And
great,
they
but it
got
was
the
okay.
right
It was
actor.
okay. Yeah, it was okay. Like it just
Yeah.
yeah, it just and Jackie Earle Haley I think is great. I didn't hate him at
Hmm.
all. I
They
just
got
think
the
that
right actor. That was fucked up. I mean, the first scene in the diner where I've always loved it kind of got played out towards the end, but I've always loved the moment where the people fall asleep because
me
it's
too.
always a head nod,
Me
you
too.
know,
Me too.
and they kind of go into that dream state. And when that happens in the beginning of the remake, and you start seeing like the oven flames going up, and Freddy starts talking, and you hear his voice, you're like, this could be a good movie. Like
Yeah, it could be.
this could be a really
There's
good
also
movie.
scenes in some of the trailers for the new one that aren't in the film. So I feel like there are
Mm.
multiple death sequences that they filmed in different ways and they went with other ones. Cuz like that scene, like he essentially dies in the diner and he makes him cut his own head off or whatever. But
Yeah,
in the trailer there's a shot of him going up the stairs and standing like while he's asleep on an edge over like a glass window, and like he
yeah.
falls into the glass window. And there's also a
Hmm.
trailer of some creepy girl with knives on her hands that's clearly part of the nightmare that's not in the movie either. So I feel like they filmed a lot
Hmm.
of different ideas for sequence and that ended up being the cut, but some of the stuff in the trailer looked better. And I thought the CGI wall, I hated that. That looks so bad. Like the
Yeah,
original looks good because it's a real person in a wall. Like it just looks good. Like how do you CG that and mess that? Like it's just a whole thing.
I don't know. I know we're talking about the original, but one more thing.
Yeah.
There is something. This scene that I really liked in the remake is when the lead character is trying to get the uppers, the pills to keep her awake, and
Hmm.
she's like half asleep, and she keeps
Yes.
blinking between his boiler
Yes.
room,
I liked
and
that.
he's dragging his hand across the wall, and the sparks are
Yep.
flying, and it cuts back, and the medicine's
And the
falling off the
medicine's falling.
shelf.
Yep. Yep.
That's great.
That
That's
that
really
that's
good
the
stuff.
that's one of the sequences I liked in the new one too. And it sucks about that because the new one introduced the idea of the micronaps, which is essentially another
Yeah,
thing that's happening too, where you don't know that you're dreaming, but you are. Which essentially it's labeling some of the things that happen, but it's giving you a real world thing. Is that's what's starting to happen to her. Like she doesn't know that
yeah,
she's dreaming, but she's trying to stay awake. Like I thought
hmm
that was one of the few concepts in the new one that was cool, but like everything else was just. I don't disagree with you. That concept was very cool.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I
um,
also thought Katie Cassidy did pretty good.
yeah.
Even though as you know she died like she was basically Kristen if I'm correct. Basically that's who she was.
hmm
Um but yeah it
Um,
just yeah I don't know.
but we're not here to talk about Jackie Earl
No,
Haley anymore. We're here to
good
talk
ones.
about Robert England.
Heather
Um,
Langenkamp, man.
Heather Langenkamp.
No,
Her
another
Nancy is so good.
her Nancy is so good, bro. She's
Yeah.
great as Nancy, and I loved her return in the third movie. Like I was so happy to see her.
Yep. And her
But
return in New Nightmare.
oh yeah, yeah, she was great in New Nightmare, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
seriously, she really was. And it seems like she didn't do a lot of filming after Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't see her in a bunch of movies, but she came back for New Nightmare. It's
Yeah.
like she's a good actress, so I'm surprised she didn't do a bunch more stuff. Cause
Yeah. It may be either a love for the source material or working relationship with Wes Craven. You know what
like
I
who
mean?
knows? Yeah, maybe could
Yeah.
be. But yeah,
Um,
but I also think
but
there's just imagery in this one that's so good. Like when Nancy's in the alleyway and like his arms extend. Like I remember as a kid that creeped me the hell out. Like suddenly his arms were like super long. Like I was like,
yeah.
what is happening?
Yeah. And something that like it kind of looks a little goofy today, but I always loved it as a
It
kid too, is the
does.
way he runs with his hand in the air,
Oh
like he's
yeah,
gonna
no.
go with the
Yeah, there
knuckle.
are some things that I have to admit haven't completely aged well, but like
Yeah.
it's also kind of like it's fine. Like it's fine. It's great. Like I don't care.
I think this movie survives or thrives, not survives. It thrives off its characters are really
For sure.
good. Nancy, her father, the lieutenant,
Early Johnny
um,
Depp. This was his
early
first
Johnny
movie if I
Depp.
remember correctly. I think it was his
Yeah,
first movie.
yeah, I think so too. Like this cast of kids who are trying to solve this mystery on why, essentially, like he's literally the boogeyman. Why the
Oh, yeah.
boogeyman is after him. You know.
Yeah, and that's why I
Um,
like the idea. I think the idea of someone who comes after in your sleep, and sleep is the one thing you cannot escape. There's
yeah.
nothing you can do about it. Like something about the concept of what Freddy Krueger is
hmm
why it remains one of my favorite ideas in horror that's ever been made because you literally are screwed. There's
Yeah.
no escaping having to fall asleep, and that's when he gets you, and that's just a terrifying concept in and of itself. It's one of the most terrifying concepts I think ever written. Like I think it's so
Yeah.
good.
I
Like,
totally agree because it's such a desperate situation. Because
hmm
staying awake it feels awful.
it
Like
does.
I got no sleep last night. I'm probably running off 4 hours because my dog kept barking.
I'm sorry.
I'm actually probably running off less than 4 hours because I took a sleep. I took a sleep. I took a nap during my
You
lunch
took
break. I
just
took a
no,
sleep.
no. I'd like 3 sleeps, please.
Yeah, but imagining like how I feel today, if I had to do this for another 48 hours, I would be losing my fucking mind. You know?
I feel you, brother. I feel you.
I could probably run another day, but my tank would be on empty.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah, and that's why I love there's like a psychological concept to these films too, where you just see people like just like hooving down like scoops of caffeine and coke and all these things throughout the films, like trying to just desperately stay. There's something about that that's so terrifying. I just feel so sorry for the characters because it's just awful, and unfortunately you're just biding your time, and then
yeah,
he's gonna get you. Like there's like nothing you can get because you have to fall asleep. You can't stay awake. Like
yeah, yeah.
like it's scary.
I loved like you said, the concept of the first one. I loved later in the series the more fantastical aspects of like what can happen in the dreams. Not so much the
Mhm.
silliness of like getting superpowers.
Yeah,
I liked it more when you're at the mercy of kind of his world
exactly.
and him
I
being
agree.
as sadistic as kind of some movies made him. I thought that was really great
They had
stuff.
some really creative sets, like too.
Yeah.
Like even though it was silly, there was one that even though it was silly, I always kind of liked it at 4. I think I kind of liked 4. Like
hmm
I thought it was funny that she like he got their souls and she got all their powers. So at the end, she like
yeah.
she like has martial arts and she's like
Yeah.
beating
Yeah.
him off. It was so stupid, but
And they're like in
and
his chest.
yeah, yeah, and then he literally like sucks the girl to death. Like,
yeah.
and then of course he has a comment about that.
Right.
Like I
Right.
was like,
Right.
bro, like it's just so.
But
And
the
then
best one is when he comes out of the TV and number 3 he's like, "Get
yeah.
ready for prime time, bitch." And you're like, "Is this where we're at?"
Yeah, yes, it is. I think the only part in 3, even though it was a fun movie, it wasn't scary. The only thing I did find kind of legitimately creepy was the puppeteering scene.
I
Like,
love that
I
scene where it's
felt
like
like
the
that
nerves in
scene
his
was
hands.
yeah, that scene was
Yeah,
actually kind of creepy. Like it really
yeah,
was. Like that was legitimately
absolutely.
creepy.
Who,
I was laughing with the girl who's the junkie, and he's just like, as he like
yeah,
sticks her with all of his
so
needles.
fucked up. Who, so
And then the wizard kid, bzzz, he's like, "This is real
Zach.
life, bitch," or
Yeah.
something, and he stabs him. It's like, what the fuck? Like,
Who would Robert England I think is at an age where I don't think he could be Freddy again, but who would be your choice today?
I didn't hate Jackie Earle Haley, but someone newer from a new generation.
Yeah.
Okay, I know this is gonna sound terrible. Benedict Cumberbatch.
And with that I'm logging off. It was good talking to you.
dude, think about his face being all distorted. He could do an American accent, and just think about like his stature, like the way he looks. Like think about
Yeah, he is good at putting on different voices.
he does, and then that long
Yeah.
face that he has like a long, slender face, which would be perfect to build a Freddy face off of. And then he's so good, like even with Smog, with bodily movement and stuff. I imagine he'd come up with some really interesting movements and creepy things for Freddy. Like I'm just thinking about someone who's capable. I could see him doing it. Like
All
I
right, I
could.
could see it. Yeah, yeah, I could see it. When I think back to his voice work, when you said that, like
Yeah.
my mind went to
Sherlock?
Sherlock and
No,
Doctor
no, 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 no.
Strange,
But
and I
also
was
his
like,
face shape, like
"Ugh."
the way his face shape is, it's long and angular, and it's like in his cheek, he has like the high cheekbones. Like it's perfect to build some kind of monstrous but unique, creepy Freddy face off of too. Like and
Yeah,
he's just such a good actor, and he could do a deep, creepy voice. And then because he's shown so much movement with his body, like even when he did the mocap for Smog and stuff, I'm sure he would have a lot of fun with the way Freddy moves and stuff, if he was even interested in playing it. But I would love to
yeah,
see what he'd do with that character personally. I think he could do really something interesting with it, but that's just my opinion.
I agree. I'm excited to see him in the new Spider-Man movie.
Oh yeah,
Um,
he's Doctor Strange. Yeah, yeah, he's gonna do
yeah,
that. Of course, how
yeah,
most
yeah,
people know him,
of
but I
course,
know him
yeah,
as like Sherlock and all these
yeah,
other things.
of
But it's
course.
like, oh yeah, Doctor Strange.
And I'm interested to see Sam Raimi directing the next Doctor Strange movie, especially because Doctor Strange is in the new Spider-Man. They're kind of
Yeah, Scott Derrickson
crisscrossing.
walked away, so he must have. I don't know if he had some clashes with Disney or what, but yeah, we'll see
It's
how it
always the
goes.
case. Like I said, they always try. I feel like they get like recently successful directors
Hmm.
who are like clearly talented, but don't have like the courage to like stand up for a creative vision outside of what the producers want.
Yeah, it makes me
You know
wonder.
what
It's
I
like
mean?
because originally I remember him posting on Twitter, and Scott Derrickson was like, "Yeah, Doctor Strange 2 is under production." Like he was on board. So like
Yeah.
whatever happened, maybe he was like, "Look, I made a good first movie. Can I please do stuff?" And they were probably, I'm
They were
guessing,
like,
but I'm just
no,
saying,
no,
no,
you can't.
no, we're Marvel. We
There,
want our movies to
there
look
is a
the same.
plan.
Yeah, there's
Make
a
sure
plan.
the plan is executed. You do not do the plan.
But it could be great. We don't need to be great. It needs to be efficient. Like it needs to
Right.
fit
We
into
need to
our
churn it out by summer 2022. What don't you
exactly.
understand?
It needs to look like these films and look like it's part of the block. Get in line or go away. Like basically is what it seems like. But
Exactly.
okay. Black Swan. Black frickin' Swan, Darren Aronofsky, one of my favorite writer directors.
Oh yeah.
I will just let you go to town.
Oh, you want me to go to town? All right.
Sure.
Check it out.
It's your pick.
Oh, I know, but I know you love it too.
That's true, I do.
So Darren Aronofsky's he's one of both of our favorite directors, and all
Mhm.
of his films are incredibly heavy with I excuse this stupid metaphor, but they're all incredibly weighty with whatever they're
Sure.
depicting, whether it be philosophy or turmoil. In this movie, it breaks down to pressure, the pressure that the characters are under to be successful in an incredibly painful and difficult craft. So
For
you
sure.
follow Natalie Portman as she's cast as the Black Swan in the upcoming production of the Black Swan, and she's given the role by her ballet instructor and play lead Vincent Cassell plays
Vincent
him. His name is
Cassel, who's great.
Thomas.
Yeah, he's
Um,
great.
and
I'd also
very
just say
slowly.
Natalie Portman's one of my favorite actresses too, as well.
Oh yeah,
She's probably one of my top 5, so it was another plus for me.
absolutely. This is one of her best performances, I think.
Oh yeah, so good.
But what they run into and where the pressure of the movie comes in is Natalie Portman, who plays Nina. She's incredibly pure and she dances incredibly gracefully, and that's kind of her style. But for the role of the Black Swan, they want her to become more like fierce and wild and
Wild, yeah.
unpredictable. And through her training for this production, it starts to seem more and more that her role is going to be given away to another dancer named Lily, played by Mila Kunis, who is those things. She's kind of the dark side of the story. And this starts to really drive this pressure and this fear into Natalie Portman's character to produce more and begin to practice more. And it starts to really take over her life to the point where she starts losing herself to this role and to the pressures of being a ballet dancer. And it leads to these incredibly unnerving scenes of transformation and pain and just uncomfortable conversations. It's a very
Yeah.
dreamlike movie.
And
Um,
and that's
and
like
even
one of the ultimate character studies in obsession as well. Like
right,
it's obsession to the T. Like I feel like a big theme of this film is how far will you go for perfection? Like
yep,
basically is like, and it's like
exactly.
you create something beautiful, something that changes the world, but I guess is it worth it? Is the
Is
question
it
at the
worth
end.
you?
Yeah, is it worth
I
you?
think
Yeah.
this movie and Whiplash have a lot in common. I think this is a better movie
100%.
than Whiplash. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very much kind of that pursuit of perfection in an artistic craft. Whiplash did drumming, this movie does ballet, but this
Yeah.
movie is a horror movie. And it has
Hmm.
a lot of really messed up kind of body horror images
It
and
is.
murder and blood and stabbings and all of these things where Whiplash didn't really take to that degree.
No.
Um, but out of all of Darren Aronofsky's movies, I always go back and forth which one is my favorite. And it tends to be the two that I tend to land on the most are probably Black Swan and The Fountain. Um,
Those are mine too. The Fountain's another one of my favorite movies as well, was Black Swan. So that's why he's one of my favorite, because he has two of my favorite films of all time, like
yeah,
in my list.
yeah.
So
And I'm excited because his next movie, The Whale, he's working on bringing Brendan Fraser back into the spotlight.
I know,
Which,
and I think we all love Brendan Fraser. I think there was a joke. It was like I think almost everyone in the world would agree that like if you have any movie that has Keanu Reeves and Brendan Fraser in it together, like we'll all come see it. Like we,
we will
like
absolutely all
just two
come see
people
it.
we love. Like who cares what it's about? Like we
I don't
will.
care if you cast Brendan Fraser as Trinity in The Matrix 4. Like, I'm there. I am there.
Yeah, it's great. Like yeah, we got this, Brendan. We love you, brother. And
Yep,
he's had kind
yep.
of a tragic story off and on, so
He
it's been
has.
it's really
Puppies.
sad. It
Quiet.
seems like because he seems like a really great guy, and it seems like he just got the short end of the stick a lot of times, unfortunately.
That
So
is unfortunately true. But you know what? He's cast in this uh, Martin
he was on that
Scorsese.
he was also in that DC show. I think that was like his the DC Titans or whatever. I think he was in a
Doom
season.
Patrol.
Yeah, Doom Patrol. There you go. I think he was in one that for a season or two too. I think which was kind of like his beginning of his comeback. I think if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And then Martin Scorsese cast him in Killers of the Flower Moon.
I heard about that too.
So
Yeah, that's exciting.
people are really looking to work with him again, which is
For
really
sure.
exciting for us as audience members who go back to The Mummy and
Dude, The Mummy. Till this day, it's one of my faves. Like, it's one of those.
yeah,
And when I watched it like a year ago for the first time in a few years, it's still fun. Like, it is still fun.
yeah.
Like, it's not even like it's dated. It's great.
No,
It's just
it's
a
not
fun
dated
movie.
at all.
I love
Even
Rachel Weisz too.
the scarab beetles still get under my skin. No pun
Yeah,
intended.
that's
No pun
creepy.
intended.
And I love
But they
Rachel
are
Weisz
creepy.
too. And I never
Yeah.
forgot how it was. Cha cha busa ba.
We have all the horses. You're on the wrong side of the river.
I don't even know if it's correct Egyptian, but I still remember lines because I saw it so much.
Yeah.
Yatuwe, and then he wakes up.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it was like, what is it? Atusteo pene amamen, and that's when he's like, and that's when he starts speaking, and then there was like, the cha cha busa ba
Oh my
was
God.
so funny.
The
Loved
dogs
it.
are charging. 1 second.
No,
Hey,
it's fun.
what? No. These crazy dogs.
It's
The
fun.
scene that always, I know we're getting off track of Black Swan, but the scene that always, come to think of it, I don't remember if it was in The Mummy or the sequel. But there, I think it was in the original. there's the scene where the one of the explorers loses his eyes in the
Oh,
tomb,
oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
Benny brings him
yeah.
in front of
It was the first one.
it was the first
It was
one.
the
Yeah,
first one.
yeah.
Yeah, it was the first
I
one.
always thought that was so fucked
It
up.
was so fucked
I
up.
always thought that was
And
so
then he's
funny.
just like, and it was that little weasel who did it too.
Yeah,
He's like, he
yeah,
must finish what he started with your eyes, and he's like,
yeah,
no, no,
yeah,
oh, and it just cuts, and then they come in, and his body's just messed up. You're like,
yeah.
dude, that's so messed up too.
It's so messed up.
No, there's like the eyes guy, and then there's like the tongue guy too. Like he
Yep,
was like, you start with your tongue because it's like his tongue and his eyes, right? Is what he took, right? If I
yep,
remember correctly,
yep.
yeah.
But he was just taking everything.
He's just so screwed. Yeah. Played by
Jeez.
Mummy was played by Arnold Vosloo.
Yeah,
He
but
was also he was great as the bad guy in Hard Target as well with Jean
I
Claude
didn't know
Van
he was a
Damme.
bad guy in Hard Target.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
he was the bad guy second to Lance Henriksen. He was Lance Henriksen right hand man, and Jean Claude Van Damme,
Nice.
and they were hunting him, and it was a John Woo film. It was my favorite Van Damme movie, and it was in Louisiana Bayou. It was awesome.
Very cool.
If you ever
Very
get a
cool.
chance, good one. It's a really cool idea. They're hunting humans for sport, and it's a good movie.
Classic.
John Woo, mid or early '90s.
Say no more. John Woo. Done. I'm there.
There will
But
be
yeah,
doves.
there will be doves. But I would recommend Black Swan for anybody who likes intense psychological movies because the
For sure.
movie is intense front to back, and
It is.
whew, what an ending. I'll just say
And
that.
it's very disturbing. Like
Yeah,
in a way that I appreciate because I feel like psychologically it's really interesting, right? But
yeah,
it is terrifically disturbing to watch this happen. And I felt like it also is a good commentary on like the dance and ballet because like I have a cousin who's kind of she's super modest, but she's kind of a world-renowned contemporary dancer in Canada. She's a big deal, and she
yep,
did start in ballet. So I have heard some things like it can be really vicious and really tough, you know, like the
yeah,
stuff that those women go through. The
yeah,
unrealistic expectations they have on their weight and their bodies and things. It can be like just downright evil. So yeah, like just her having all those insecurities and them just getting worse and worse to the point where she kind of just defiles herself in a way
uh
to
huh,
become something that she's not, but she can be. But it's like, do you really, do you like most people would just take it as a role. She doesn't take it as a role. It becomes her life, right? It becomes
yeah,
everything, and
yeah,
it's at the expense of her life, which is the point that it's yeah, I don't know. But I like the way he decided to show the evolution visually. That was one of the most unique things I'd ever seen. Like it wasn't
yeah,
just a performance. There was some CG effects that were done and some scenes that were glorious. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful, but it was also and the ending is it's not even though what happened was beautiful for the audience, the ending is a tragedy.
absolute
I felt the
tragedy.
same way about Whiplash in a way because you could
Yep,
look at it two ways. He surpassed the expectations and became what his mentor wanted from him, and it is quite impressive. But at the same time, he he killed himself to become something that's kind of depressing in a way too. Like you know what I mean? It's kind of a loss in a way as well. You
yeah,
can look at it two ways, I guess, and it's I don't know. I feel like it's a lot more obvious what way you should look at it in Black Swan.
yeah. I think that too. I think it is a lot more obvious.
So
And then if you enjoy that, go watch Mother. Go watch
I
Mother.
loved Mother, but yeah,
Me too.
just so you guys know, trigger warning. Mother deals with things. But see, if I feel like if I tell you, it spoils some things because
Yeah,
it's kind of an allegory, right? Basically,
it's
in a
very
way.
much an allegory. But you
So
know
I
what?
will just let you watch it.
Exactly. If it
You know.
offends people, let people make that decision for themselves.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Some
exactly.
people may really enjoy it.
Yeah, I thought, but it's Mother with an exclamation point. I think it's a lowercase m, if I'm correct.
Yep.
Because
That's right.
there's a couple films called Mother, but yeah, it'll be by Darren Aronofsky. It's called Mother. It's very good, but
Yeah.
it's a trip.
It's a trip for sure. The last half an hour. Woo!
But I also realized we just want to say now because we didn't say earlier, but it is Friday. It is October, so happy
Quiet.
Halloween because we won't see you until the next podcast. So happy Halloween. We hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. We covered some of the horror films and different genres that we loved, but we hope you guys have a wonderful and spooky Halloween. Anything you want to say, Dylan?
No, happy Halloween. Enjoy, celebrate, be safe, dress up, watch scary movies, eat candy.
I second everything he just said. It's perfection.
Perfection it is. Thank you, everybody. Until next time, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.